Sword of Coming Chapter 989. In the Huaihuang County City School, the school was over, it was still early, and the children from good families put up paper kites one after another. After drinking tea and chatting about landscapes, Qin Pingan took Xiao Yunyan and Mrs. Yan Yan out to stroll around Luopao Mountain. Pedestrians walked up to the top of the green hills, and the white ones were clouds and trees. I don't know how many days in the world. Never thought that Xiao Yunyan had found an excuse and went for a walk by himself without righteousness, which made Mrs. Yan Yan, who was alone with the young hidden official, extremely nervous. Qin Pingan walked to the top of the mountain with her, holding a colorful knot that looked like a copper coin, and asked with a smile, "No." Mrs. Yan Yan's expression changed slightly. This colorful knot is made by refining the essence of many flower gods in the 100-blossom land. She has no direct relationship with her but has some origins. Madame Yan Yan was able to escape to the Hanging Mountain alive back then. The digital flower gods of the 100 Flowers Blessed Land contributed a lot in secret. So the last time we discussed the Confucian Temple, Mrs. Yan Yan and Baihua Fudi were very cordial. Qin Pingan put away the knot and said, "You are accompanying Xiao Jianxian on the tour of the Middle Earth this time, and you can help me send a message to the blessed land of 100 Flowers, saying that I will bring this item with me when I visit the blessed land next time. As for the return, it needs to be negotiated face to face." Mrs. Yan Yan showed a surprised look. Is the young hidden official giving her a favor in vain? Like the dynasty under the mountain, to announce the good news to those capitals whose names are on the golden list? But they all get paid. Moreover, this thing is a great surprise. How can a scholar who is admitted to the Jinshi can compare? There are many flower gods in the blessed land of flowers, and everyone has a share. Therefore, Mrs. Yan Yan can fully imagine what she and Xiao Jingyan will be like in the blessed land of flowers in the future. Yes. No matter how Qin Pingan and the flower master of blessed land talked after the incident, Madame Yan Yan might be able to get a guest in blossom blessed land. As the beauty of the upper 5 realms of plants and trees, who has become a plum tree, how can they have no thoughts about the blessed land of 100 flowers? This is just like the cultivator of the local demon tribe of Hauran regards Taishu Mountain as a holy place, and Shanzhe Yeshio is fascinated by Beidasheng. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Is this your reward for spending more than 100 years at the Qingmei Temple in Nantang Lake?" Mrs. Yan Yan smiled sweetly, "No problem. In the world of plants and flowers, there is actually only one ancestral hall." Qin Pingan wrapped his arms around his sleeves and walked up to the top of the mountain. "Mei Jing, that's the name, right?" Mrs. Yan Yan's expression changed slightly, and her smile became far-fetched. Mei Jing is Mrs. Yan Yan's real name on the secret file of the Summer Palace, her real name of the demon clan. If she wanted to open up a plum garden under the eyes of the eldest disciple, Da's second child, how could she not report her real name? Qin Pingan said, "How do you feel when you return to the vast world, return home in fine clothes and travel around the world?" In Upside Down Mountain, Mrs. Yan Yan could only support the puppet and act as the master behind the plum garden, and she did not dare to leave the garden. In Chinch Umbrella now he is the named worshipper of the Dragon Elephant Sword sect, recognized as Lu Ji's friend, and the named guest of Luopao Mountain. Now he is with Xiao Yunyan, and Hauran Jiuzhou does not dare to go anywhere. Mrs. Yan Yan's heart was tense and she thought over and over again. Since she vacated a plum garden and handed it over to the Great Wall of Sword Qi, she completely drew a line with the Ascension Realm monster who was hiding very deeply and whose alias was Border, and chose to follow Lu Ji actively. And then returned to the Hauran world together. He served as the enshrinement of the Dragon Elephant Sword sect founded by Qi Tingji and Nambua Suazhou. Not long ago he served as the guest minister for the Yulong sect. It's not the usual style of this young hidden official. If nothing else, Qin Pingan does things very easily. Qin Pingan said, "People have a heart and a tree has a scar. The vast world, or the Qi practitioners in the vast world, especially the genealogy monks, are a scar in your heart." Mrs. Yan Yan said cautiously, "I'm relieved. Lord Ingguan doesn't have to worry that he'll stick with anyone here, and then cause unnecessary trouble to Dragon Elephant Sword sect." Years have passed, anyway there are not many left of the group of Qi practitioners who embarrassed her back then. Qin Pingan said, "Don't reach a reconciliation with this world. Every so-called reconciliation is self-deception and grievance. Grievance is always grievance, and it will not be reduced in the slightest. Just my own opinion. To be careful, sneaky and quietly dismantle the world. First of all, you have to know what is going on in the world and understand what many people will say and do. In fact, this is Mrs. Yan Yan has done much better than before. When she was poor, she relied on being ruthless and forbearance. As for whether she will retaliate against the world when the next person turns over to become the master, is she intent on taking revenge for her past malice, or repaying the past? Some kind of goodwill, or both. Everyone has their own aspirations and it is understandable. Speaking of which, Qin Pingan smiled and said, whether you are close to me or not, and whether you can call me a friend, you don't need to throw a few orange peels to test. If it wasn't for Nuanshu to clean up the house, and Nuanshu would never let me do it for you, I don't care about you. Mrs. Yen Yen smiled, Lord Yingguan, am superfluous. Qin Pingan said, Qi Tingji has his own ambitions and they are very big. He is also in extreme pursuit of meticulous thinking and rigorous behavior. In other words, he is obsessive-compulsive and has a clean addiction, but he has been hiding it well. In the Jianghu Great Wall he manages a family. The environment is cramped, and he can't help but show his openness and stretch his hands and feet. Now he has become a sect and the family is the dominant one in Nampo Suajo, so this feature will gradually expand and show. Besides, in the eyes of Qi Tingji, there is a price tag. This sentence is ugly, and it is also suspected of telling people right and wrong, but I don't want Dragon Elephant Sword Sect because of you, because of something, cause Lu Ji and Qi Tingji to turn against each other. A good situation, put it into running water. No matter what others think, just say that I, in a sense, regard the Dragon Elephant Sword Sect of Pajuo Continent and the Qingping Sword Sect of Tongye Continent as the continuation of the incense of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Lu Ji has her own pursuit of swordsmanship. It's not what she wants to be distracted by asking people about swords. She doesn't like to think too much. She doesn't like to think too much. A friend, once she hands you a sword, it will only be heavier. Lu Ji doesn't care much about the rules of the Confucian Temple, but in the next 100 years, the Confucian Temple will restrict the great monks only more and more strictly. This is not an alarmist, just like myself. Because of a certain plan, I was mentally prepared to be closed down by the Confucian Temple for 100 years, and then I myself had to be thrown by Li Sheng to be with Lu Cha for a period of 100 years, every day. Practice sword fishing and fishing. Xiao Yunyan's realm is not enough. Although he is a sword immortal, he is not good at fighting people. Besides, his ambition is not to reach the top of swordsmanship. He used to be, and it will be the same in the future. If you want me to say, we Xiao Jianxian are the people who live a very transparent life. It is better to have a glass when you are drunk. When you are thirsty, you drink water like dew. When you are old, you will be healthy and worry-free, and you will be a longevity fairy in the world. There are 2 reasons. How to behave in the world and why he went up the mountain to cultivate the Tao. He thoroughly thought about it and really did a good job. So Xiao Yunyan is not suitable for you. Mrs. Yen Yen became more and more confused. What exactly do you want to say, Qin Pingan? Qin Pingan said, I have told you such a big story after going around. To put it simply, in fact, in one sentence, the one you can rely on in the end is always yourself. Before and after the truth, the pros and cons, the big and the small, I will tell you Qin Pingan alone. When Mrs. Yen Yen heard this, she only felt that her heart was cold, and she added another great grievance, didn't she? Do you have any reason to say so? Qin Pingan said with a smile, I believe in Meijing today, so when something happens in the future, it may not be pleasing to ask the suzerain Qi Tingji for help, but it is a pleasure to ask Lu Ji to come forward to solve it. But after all, it is easy to get out of hand. Even if Qi Tingji is willing to help clean up that mess, don't ask Lu Ji to say anything, but you will definitely be wearing small shoes. So you have to rely on yourself. For example, write a letter to Luo Pashan, say hello to me and make sure to be there when you call. Qin Pingan only gave 2 such verbal promises, his best friend Lu Jinglong and Suishan Xinjun. The latter was due to his husband. Qin Pingan traveled to Suishan last time, leaving a promise of, but by dispatch. Qin Pingan smiled and said, even if I wasn't in the mountains or even Haoran Xianxia at the time, so I couldn't arrive at the first time, I would say hello to Zhu Lian and Chui Dongshan in advance, and take your request as the upper and lower too. Zong's priority. Don't worry, I will let the person who provokes you or Zongmin know what it means to ask for trouble. Mrs. Yen Yen was dazed, and when she regained her senses, she remained silent. She just had a good manner and wished the young hidden officer a blessing. Wearing a blue shirt, he stood by the railing. Mrs. Yen Yen was lying on the railing. She didn't need any makeup, she was naturally charming, and she was naturally plum blossom. It seems that if the 2 sides don't talk about business, there is nothing to talk about, and there is some silence for a while. She suddenly turned her head and asked, Qin Pingan, talk to me today. Take out the colored knots first, then give out my real name, then tell Sect Master Qi, Mr. Lu and Xiao Yunyan's own personalities, and finally explain their original intentions to me. Is it also a dismantling of me? Don't put a good thing, a good word, in such a strange way. By the way, Qin Pingan, what is the plan you mentioned earlier and the consequences are so serious? Defraud Yang Ji, who has been pardoned by the Confucian Temple, and hack it to death, and wait for him to be arrested by Li Xing to go to Gongdalin to be locked up. Yuanmu Peak is adjacent to Huanghu Mountain, and the mountain is like a mountain climbing slowly and then suddenly rushing down the mountain, and the sea of clouds pours like a waterfall in an instant. For the first time, Qin Pingan personally supervised the construction of this far-flung peak, and worked with Zhu Lian on every detail. Because of the long-distance travel, including Zushan Luopao Mountain, Zhu Lian, the big housekeeper, is almost in charge of the civil construction. Qin Pingan bought a lot of large bluestone slabs and planned to pave the entire Yuanmuffing Mountain Road into a bluestone road. Bamboo fences were erected on both sides, and green bamboos were everywhere in the mountains. Every morning he would accompany Xiaomi to patrol the mountain, and then go to the account room of Quan Mansion to accompany Wei Wenlong and Zhang Jiajin to reconcile the accounts. After returning to the bamboo building, Qin Pingan replied to some invitations by hand. In addition to teaching boxing to Zhao Shuxia, Qin Pingan was breathing and practicing swords. Guizhuzhou didn't like to go to the sword platform, but often went to Xianxia Mountain to hang out. He was often accompanied by a girl in a mink hat, and encouraged Guizhuzhou to form a gang together. Qin Lingjun closed for 2 hours every day and then went out on time. Either he went to the mountain gate to chat with Daoist Xianwei, or he went to Kalongxiang for inspection. Brother Jia became the second steward of Fengyuan Ferry. Home, I can only argue with the white-haired boy who has been promoted. On the way back and forth, he looked at the empty Xingting pavilion. Bai Xian, the little bastard, is no longer there to drink tea at the stall. Qin Lingjun felt that it was not a good experience. I was thinking of when to persuade the master. Well, why don't you call Bai Xian back? Be careful to be dug into the corner by the big white goose again. Don't we have to damage a future general who can be used? A hero who dares to fight with Pei Qian? There are not many. Look at the white head of the Taihui sword sect. Do you dare now? Said Bai Xian, a boy with great promise. Even though he is young, he has lofty aspirations. Qin Pingan has spent at least 1 hour a day on the second floor of the bamboo building to teach Zhao Shuxia boxing. The first time I taught boxing, I just let Zhao Shuxia see the innermost part of boxing, and see its depth in his own small world. The second time he taught boxing, Qin Pingan still didn't feed the boxing, but he was in the house and let Zhao Shuxia see what it means to be unique. The 24 talismans that appeared on the second floor corresponded to the solar terms of the year one by one, from the beginning of spring rain and Jingzhi to the winter solstice, the small cold and the big cold. Fu Lu, the second floor suddenly filled with fist intent, such as the scorching heat, which made Zhao Shuxia sweat instantly. When Qin Pingan just twisted the two symbols of heavy snow and winter solstice, the room suddenly became cold and bone fist intent. Qin Pingan asked Zhao Shu, pulling open the stake frame, he threw a punch at himself with all his strength. Zhao Shuxia did the same. Qin Pingan raised his hand and flicked it to break up the fist, and then twisted out the Guyu and Shuangjiang symbols. Zhao Shuxia punched again and found that he seemed to be throwing out a fist with all his strength, and there was no need for the master to dodge. Qin Pingan did not remove the small formation formed by the two talismans, but let Zhao Shuxia stand against the wall first, and then Qin Pingan raised his fist again. In an instant, the fists in the house flowed like a flood and spread out. The fists slammed into the wall violently, and the entire bamboo building shook, and then the entire Luopao mountain began to be filled with mountain air, and the sea of clouds smashed away. Then Zhao Shuxia was carried downstairs by Zhu Lian, who had been waiting in the corridor outside the door. Zhu Lian carried Zhao Shuxia, who was covered in blood, on his back. Young master, there is no way to fight that question. Boxing, the location remains the same. Why don't the time slow down? What if it doesn't snow in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom this year? Why not? Let's talk about it next year? The year after that is fine too. Qin Pingan chuckled. You said it's a coincidence, Imichi trainer. What's more, it happens that the 5 elements are complete, and the snow is not a problem. You can snow as much as you want. Zhu Lian said, then I admit defeat? Qin Pingan smiled and said, I advise you to save yourself, and don't show your enemy here and be weak. He was full of confidence and gave a punch to someone, only to be punched directly in the face by the other party. This kind of embarrassing thing, Qin Pingan will never do it again. Zhu Lian smiled and said, young master shouldn't have borrowed that book of boxing for me. Qin Pingan smiled and said, if you can't lie to me lightly, then start to scare me? Are you using the art of war? After that, he taught Zhao Shuxia boxing again. Qin Pingan, the master, may have finally adjusted his mentality, so Zhao Shuxia began to suffer. Although there are no heavy words of Senior Cui, but for a 4-level martial artist, Qin Pingan's fists and feet are not light. Practice makes perfect, and then teach boxing later because Zhao Shuxia's physical limit is roughly determined. Qin Pingan can guarantee close to an hour of feeding boxing. Zhao Shuxia, who had fainted that day, was once again carried by Zhu Lian in a potion bucket. On the corridor on the first floor, Nuanshu and Migraine looked at each other. The two little girls sighed softly and said nothing. In fact, Zhao Shuxia is a little better than Pei Qian when he was a child. After all, Pei Qian would often use sticks and bamboo chips to tie his arms and fingers to copy books. Qin Pingan stood silently at the intersection for a moment, then walked back to the corridor and sat. Nuanshu is sewing cloth shoes, a needle and thread basket is placed beside him, and a thimble is on his fingers. Taking the soles of shoes is not only physical work, but also requires ingenuity. Grasp the sole of the shoe and pull up the needle and thread with one hand with even force so that the cloth shoes can be light and strong. Xiaomi Li also ordered 2 pairs of cloth shoes with Sister Nuanshu. Originally, the right protector wanted to directly order 20 pairs of shoes. As a result, Sister Nuanshu gave her a chestnut. No miles. Qin Pingan made an appointment with them and he could come here every day at this time. Nuanshu and Xiaomi are sure to come. Qin Lingjun felt that there was nothing to talk about with the two girls, so he often sat down for a while and left. Recently, Qin Lingjun has been talking to the left guardian of Qilong Lane, and he has split the helm, and newly established the position of General Guardian of Qilong Lane. The diligent Zhui boy in Dianmao has been promoted and promoted. Pei Qian would send a letter to Jiaisfeng every time after a period of time. According to the old rules, he would write on the envelope, the right protector will open it in person, and Sister Nuanshu will read the letter and save it. Therefore, the promotion of the Zhui boy from the right guardian of the Dragon Lane to the chief guardian, even if it is finalized, when the millet grain conveyed the good news at the gate of the mountain, the incensed little man first made a gesture of holding the sacred decree with both hands, and then looked solemn, upright. He straightened his clothes, faced south respectfully and bowed down 3 times. As for the left guardian of the Dragon Lane, what else can I do? Continue to lie down and stay still. Qin Lingjun has always been angry with this guy. He is also a lazy person who can't be helped. He doesn't even want to be promoted. There are trivial things on the mountain, not tiring but the best way to kill time, so Nuanshu will come here to sew cloth shoes whenever he has free time recently, which is regarded as a break. Carrying a bamboo box on his back and holding a walking stick was once the style brought by the master. Now he is wearing a green shirt and a long coat, and wearing a pair of old cloth shoes with a 1,000-layer bottom too. So Xiaomi Mi, Qin Lingjun and Daoist Xianwei all have ideas. In fact, Mr. Zhu has long liked to wear cloth shoes but no one cared. After all, when Pei Qian first learned that the old cook used to have the nickname Your Highness, he almost didn't burst into tears. Millet grains are better. Anyway, in those few days he just revolved around the old cook and didn't say anything. Is to look hard. Nuanshu is probably the most considerate one. In the house, I heard Pei Qian laughing and saying things like, "Your son banishes the immortal." Millet grains were rolling on the bed with laughter and Nuanshu just blinked. Eyes, pursed lips, did not laugh. When the millet swaggered to ask the old cook if he wanted a pair of cloth shoes, he started shouting after entering the door. Zhu Lian wore an apron and carried a kitchen knife out of the kitchen. As a result, the millet looked down and saw that it was a pair of cloth shoes. Then he looked up again. There are kitchen knives, one old and one young, big eyes staring at small eyes. Anyway, the scene was quite embarrassing. Nuanshu lowered his head and bit off the thread and asked curiously, "Master, is that origami swallow a gift?" The 5 sacred mountains of Middle Earth, the woman Shanjun from Yenji Mountain on the Gongdalan side, once gave out an origami black-robed swallow, which can be regarded as an incense villain, and only needs to be placed on the plaque or beam of the ancestral house. And the closer it is to the famous mountain, the more spiritual it is. Qin Pingan nodded with a smile. "I'm very reluctant to give it away, but I feel at ease even if I give it away." Qin Pingan lay on his back, put his hands under his head, raised his legs and asked with a smile, "Nuanshu Millet Grains, you said that Xianhuan has worked so hard to practice boxing, what is he pursuing?" To say that Xianhuan lived in the mountains to cultivate Taoism, he was so tireless he seemed to be able to understand a little bit. From then on, there was a difference between immortals and ordinary people. The pursuit of proving the Tao and longevity, even if he practiced a little, could prolong his life. But she practiced boxing like this every day, summer to autumn solstice, winter to spring, year after year, rain or shine. Logically speaking, there must be an idea and hope, but it seems that Xianhuan has not said what must be done, as if practicing boxing is just a matter of in practicing boxing. Even a person as patient as Qin Pingan would be so bored that he wanted to help Xuanhuan make a rough calculation, how many steps he had taken over the years. Nuanshu thought for a while and said softly, Mr. Zhu said that she has a self in boxing, Pei Qian said that she wanted to prove that women have great achievements in boxing, Chen Lingjun said that she is, each has his own opinion. I think Sister Tsun maybe it's just doing something that I really like, the result in the eyes of others doesn't seem to be that important, and maybe this process is the best result. Qin Pingan nodded, I understand a bit. Millet grains were originally lying on the green bamboo corridor, holding their cheeks with both hands and counting the white clouds passing by outside the cliff. 1, 2, 3. When the good man was lying down, she immediately rolled over, and then rotated half a circle, lying on her back together with the good man. The owner of the mountain followed his example and swayed his legs. Qin Pingan closed his eyes. The last time Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall discussed matters, because at that time, I didn't think about going to Tongyi's how to create the next sect. Qin Pingan's earliest idea was that Cui Wei of Yuanyingjing would sit on the sword worship platform and practice swords with 9 sword immortal embryos there. So the right side of Sui Sui suddenly asked to use the sword-worshipping platform as a dojo during the discussion in the Zhushirtang. Qin Pingan just used an excuse to refuse this matter, saying that it was a sect elsewhere, Jindan Kaifeng, and Luopao Mountain must be nascent soul realm. As a result, the 9 children Yu Qingzhang, He Xiangting and Yu Yu apprenticed as teachers and left Aquarius. Cheng Chaolu, He Gu and Yu Xiehui apprenticed to their respective teachers. Since their masters were all members of the Qingping Sword Sect Patriarch, they changed their genealogy and went to Tongya continent as a matter of course. Bai Xian and King Sun Chun, although they didn't have them, stayed in the Cave Heaven Dojo on Mi Xiefeng to practice their swords. In the end, the only ones who really stayed on Luopao Mountain were Nailan Yuyu and Yao Xiaoyan. What's more, Nailan Yuyu, a small abacus for money fans, also likes to follow the master who is the master of Luopao Mountain, take the Fengyuan ferry together, travel south and north and cross the 3 continents. When you think of a good idea that can make money, jot it down. Qin Pingan opened his eyes, sat up and sat cross-legged, sighing, with Qingping Sword Sect on Luapa Mountain, it will be difficult to increase the number of sword cultivators in the future. Millet sat up and nodded vigorously, how can this be good? Qin Pingan stretched out his hand and rubbed her little head, this clever and broad-minded man, can you help me come up with an idea? Millet nodded, crossed her arms around her chest, closed her eyes and frowned with 2 pale and yellowish brows. Qin Pingan didn't bother her, turned his head and asked with a smile, Nuanshu, those idle vassal hilltops beyond the far curtain peak, do you have a favorite place? If there is, let me know and I will keep it for you. The 10 vassal hilltops that are now idle include Huimen Mountain, Cinnabar Mountain, Weixia Peak, Baijiantai, Xiangshan Mountain, Yuanmu Peak and Xiaodugang. The 3 hills that were once rented out and then rented back, Baolu Mountain, Kaiyin Peak and Xianchao Mountain, can naturally be used as Kaifeng addresses now. On the other side of Huanghu Mountain, there is already a water house under the water flood, and the 2 Dragon King baskets of Nuanshu and Chen Lingjun have also been refined there into a great array of mountains and rivers. Among them, Yuanmu Peak, Qin Pingan had already given it to Li Baoping. That's why Chunyang Jinren would engrave a poem on the cliff there before. If Jiang Chu did not become a direct disciple of Cui Dongshan, changed the genealogy and went to Qingping Sword Sect, then as the first cultivator of Fulu in the strict sense of Luopao Mountain, when Jiang Chu succeeded in forming a golden elixir in the future, Baolu Mountain is reserved. It was for Jiang. On the other side of Xiaodugang, Lin Shui, Yulu and Xia each chose a mansion that they had an eye for. It's just that once you become a Confucian gentleman and a sage, you can't serve as a genealogy monk of any Shinfu sect, or make a name for worship. In the mountains to the west, there are still more than 10 immortal clan forces left behind, just like the Yidai Peak who descended the mountain as the Huangliang faction. The last time Jiang Shangzhen spoke directly, those unfamiliar immortal houses, as long as the buyer and the seller, you and I wish, there will be incense love. There is nothing in the world that cannot be solved by a bunch of money from Guyu, if there is, add more money. If it is just such a sentence, it is not the behavior of Chief Luo Shanzhou, and Jiang Shangzhen's last sentence is the essence. As long as the mountain master opens his mouth today, I will knock on the door when I leave Jisa Peak. Tomorrow, if there is an immortal master who does not move out of the mountain with a smile, even if I am the new chief enshrined, I don't pay attention to what I do. In fact, the last time Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall discussed the matter, Wei Wenlong of Chuanfu had already made it clear that his own Luopeishan had already paid off his debts. On the account books of Chuanfu, the so-called slight surplus means that there are still 3,600 tablets on the books. Guyu Chen's cash. This is not even counting the 600 gold and copper coins in the treasury. Nuanshu shook his head and said, Master, I'm still in the Dragon Gate realm and I'm not even a golden pill. I'm still far from nascent soul, so I don't need to stay. And the girls in pink skirts are not willing to leave here, no matter how close they are to Luapa Mountain. They are not Luapa Mountain after all. Chin Pingon smiled and said, Then don't worry. It seems that on their side the mountain master said the same thing the most, that he was not in a hurry. Unconsciously repeatedly said. Chin Pingon continued, A certain uncle is different. He is already worried about whether to choose the Grey Mountain or the Cinnabar Mountain. On the Nujiadu side he asked this question on purpose. There's no fuss. Nuanshu frowned, smiled again and continued to lower his head to sew cloth shoes. Just like that, another day Baiyun walked up the green hill, coming and going. In the Xianxia Mountain, in the apricot and peach blossoms, the sound of the flute chanted the sky full of moonlight. The 2 adjacent shops in Qilong Lane were closed. The old cook rewarded himself by frying 2 dishes of appetizers, flipping a page of boxing manuals with each sip of wine. Xiao Imo glanced out the window in the private book building that his son named Liang Dang. He wanted to say something but remembered the teaching of the son, so he held back his words. Daoist Yenwei worked hard to watch the door all day, read at night with the lights on, and occasionally wrote something with a pen and ink. The predecessors benefited people today, and people today also want to make some contributions to future generations. Someone rode a donkey into the mountain, swaying and in a relaxed mood. But of course it is a donkey made of a talisman. People who practice Taoism climb mountains and mountains. If they want to cherish their feet, they like to use this type of talisman as a means of transportation, but the price is not low and there is a lot of wear and tear. Chi practitioners in the lower 5 realms often buy them affordable, cannot afford. The man was sloppy with a full beard, riding a small donkey and chanting, shaking his head and looking contented. There was still a long way to go to Luopao Mountain. When 1 person and 1 donkey were about to cross the stream stone bridge, a green shirt appeared on the opposite side and smiled, Whoever the donkey is carrying is the only poem. Lu Baqiao laughed and said, Qin Pingan, every time I see you, I feel that I am extraordinarily handsome. Good opening statement. Qin Pingan smiled, Brother Baqiao, have you been to Xiaogu Mountain and Jingyang Mountain this time? Next time you go, remember to report my name. It's fine to stay for a few more days. Just stay at Bailudu going through Yunlu and I Yuerong, the former shopkeeper of the inn, and Wei Yueshan, the ferry manager, are friends and can keep accounts. Lu Baqiao was stabbed in the heart all of a sudden, and his face suddenly embarrassed. You are the one who talks a lot. After the ceremony, although Jingyang Mountain, who had just joined the sect, became a laughingstock on one continent, it was not all bad. For example, Su Jia, whose sword heart was broken by the Yellow River in Fengliuan in the early years, returned to Jingyang Mountain. Although Su Jia had already no longer a sword repairer, she was still reincorporated into the genealogy of the ancestral hall. It's just that the outside world doesn't know. In fact, Su Jia has a new opportunity to continue to practice swords. She often travels between Xiaogu Mountain and Cornell Peak, but Wu Tijing, a close disciple of the mountain master Bamboo Emperor, inexplicably broke away from the genealogy and left. Jingyang Mountain is missing. As the mortal enemy of Jingyang Mountain, today's Fenglei Garden, because the owner of the garden, the Yellow River, has rushed to the wild world, and now he is at the Ferry of the Sun, and there is still a junior brother Lu Baqiao, a swordsman in the Yuaning realm, sitting on the top of the mountain. Moreover, Lu Baqiao is also one of the 10 young people selected by Bao Pingzhou himself. Of course, the specific ranking has been falling and falling again. It's just that compared to Jingyang Mountain, which already has 2 Jade Pure Realm Sword Immortals, if it's just a competition of paper strength, Fengliuan is at a disadvantage. Qin Pingan asked with a smile, Why did you think of coming to Luapa Mountain? I made an appointment with my senior brother to become Jade Pu within 100 years. Isn't it more than 90 years away? With my sword training qualifications, what's the hurry? Lu Baqiao turned over and got off the back of his donkey. You can't keep your head closed when practicing swordsmanship. Look at Fengshui Temple, Wei and Jin, and then look at you and Lu Xianyang, who doesn't like to sway around. The 3 of you are all 4. I entered the Jade Pure Realm when I was in my teens, and the reason why I am still a nascent soul is that I descended the mountain too late and the number of times was too few. As for joining Yupu, Lu Baqiao is really not conceited. He does have a bit of confidence, but if you say immortal, Brother Huang, he can see it. Lu Baqiao can only rely on it. In the past, the Earth Immortals of the Aquarius continent climbed to the platform together, and whether they could see the ancient Tianmen was the best touchstone. Lu Baqiao Thief asked Cici, Why are you willing to hand over the right side of Sui to Shizong? Xiaoshan and Xiaozong are too powerful, and it is always a taboo on the mountain. Of course, Luapa Mountain doesn't have to worry about this. Lu Baqiao still has great confidence in Qin Pingan. He established 2 sects in just 30 years. Besides, the master of Qinshan is the one who grew up with Lu Baqiao. Qin Pingan said angrily, "What is there to give up? She is Jianxiu and Qingping Jianzong is a Kendo sect. If she stays in Luopao Mountain she will be called a ghost." There are 10 young people in Beipingzu, led by Ma Kuxuan of Zhenwu Mountain, who is at the top of the list, followed by Xialing of Longquan Jianzong, Ma Kuxuan's teacher Yushiwu and Kai Jingjian of Green Juniper Peak of Yunxia Mountain, on the right of Sui Mountain of Luopao Mountain Jiangyun, Zhou from the academy, and a loose monk named Zhao Shitua are on the list, while the right side of Sui is also a sword cultivator like Lu Baqiao, so Xialing and Yushiwu surpassed the ranking, respectively. Afterwards, Lu Baqiao, who has fallen out of the top 3, is very likely to be squeezed to the 5th position. As a result, I heard that Sui ran off to the right, went to Tongye Continent, and served as a worshipper in the Patriarch's Hall on the lower sect of Luopao Mountain. As a result, there were 10 young people in Baoping Continent, which was equivalent to a vacancy. This made Lu Baqiao very happy. He lay still and didn't do anything, so he kept the seat under his buttocks. Therefore, in Fenglai Garden recently, when I saw those elders who only speak slanderous words, Lu Jianxian waste the rod is hard, the voice is loud, and the speech is rushed. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "You are lucky there are many geniuses in the younger generation of Fengliyuan, and there will be no worries of no successor in 200 or 300 years, otherwise with the character of the owner of Huanghuan, before going down the mountain you can directly drop a decree and let you practice your sword obediently for 100 years. After the death of Li Tuanjingbing, Fengliyuan credited the big disciple Huang He for provoking it. On the other side of Xinjiang Mountain, whether it is Bamboo Emperor, the owner of the first-line peak of Zushan, or Xiayuan Sui, the old patriarch of the Jade Pure Realm on the Full Moon Peak, I really don't dare to ask the sword against the Yellow River in the nascent Soul Realm. No one dares to say hi. One can win." Shanmin not only did not collapse, the family is in the middle of the road, but showed a thriving momentum. Moreover, several of Lu Baqiao's younger brothers and nephews were all extremely talented young sword cultivators. Lu Baqiao nodded and said, "According to what my senior brother said, Song Daoguang, Zai Xiang, Xing Yoheng, Nangong Xingyin, all of them have the hope of entering the nascent soul realm in the future." Lu Baqiao rubbed his chin. "Qin Pingan, don't you think it strange? Why does it seem that the Earth Immortal Sword Cultivator of our Aquarius Island has become worthless since Wei and Jin entered the 5 realms?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Maybe a certain fishing net is broken?" Lu Baqiao asked in confusion, "How do you say it?" Qin Pingan said, "It's useless to talk too much, just experience it yourself." Lu Baqiao led the donkey and said with a smile, "I have a nephew named Xing Yoheng, you probably haven't heard of it. This Xing Yoheng, who seems to be hanging around every day, is actually the most diligent in his practice behind the scenes, which is called desperate. Every time he leaves the dojo he pretends to be surprised. Alas, why is a certain senior brother practicing swords in seclusion again? Just a piece of shit. But Lu Baqiao likes it very much like himself." Qin Pingan said, "I know, a very young Dragon Gate sword cultivator, his killing power is very outstanding among the pure sword cultivators. Why, this is a golden pill. If I remember correctly, Xing Yoheng is only 3 years old now. Are you in your early 10 years? Lu Baqiao nodded with a smile. "There is an element of luck, but in the end it is still successful in forming a pill. It is related to a mysterious xianxia opportunity. Because it involves the inside story of the mountain gate, I won't tell you any more. Anyway, it is Fenglai Garden. I'm going to hold a small-scale opening ceremony on the day of Lixia, and only invite some acquaintances. My uncle annoys me every day saying that since Qin Jianxian and I have known each other for a long time, how good is the relationship? Hurry up, we will settle this matter with Luopao Mountain, and our Fenglai Garden should arrange seats earlier. Moreover, the uncle gave a death order, Qin Jianxian must come in person, and no one else can do it for Luopao Mountain. Since Qin Jianxian visited Lushan in person last time, his tail is almost up in the sky. We Fengliyuan can't be worse than a Huangliang pie. I'm worried that it's just Fei Jian sending a letter. Please don't move Qin Jianxian, who has a lot of business, and he will refuse when he finds any excuse. Then I will be embarrassed. My uncle is not very good-tempered. The sole of my shoe hit my face. I will come here in person and invite you to participate in this celebration, and we will not make up those falsehoods. Just don't let me go home empty-handed, just it's not worth making your friend." Nowadays in Fenglai Garden, those senior antiques are worried about the owner of the garden every day, praising Xing Yoheng and the others, and then scolding Lu Baqiao again. In general, that's how it is. Chen Pingan tutade, I've seen people who collect money from sect celebrations on the mountain, but I've never seen you go to the top of another mountain like this and ask for gifts. Lu Baqiao said confidently, second brother, don't say big brother, just those night tour banquets that you and Wei Shanjun teamed up to play together, the entire Beiwei realm is almost full of complaints. Compared with you, I am far behind. Qin Pingan laughed and scolded, fuck you, Weibo has held so many night banquets, does it have anything to do with me? If you don't believe it, I can bring Wei Shanjun to confront him. Is there a snow? The money goes into the pockets of my lousy mountain. Lu Baqiao suddenly said, if you don't say it, he'll forget it. It would be great if Wei Shanjun could take a break from his busy schedule this time. Remember to send me a message to Pai Yunshan. Qin Pingan smiled and said, I am also lucky to have made such a friend. Lu Baqiao said, don't talk nonsense, just say whether you will go or not. Qin Pingan said helplessly, go, promise to go. Lu Baqiao suggested, let's talk about it first. Today I will use a congratulatory gift to fool the past, and then I will give Feng Liyuan a surprise. It's actually better. Qin Pingan twitched the corners of his mouth. Well, it's a combination of money and man. Of course it's better for brother Baqiao and I have a good face. Someone steered the sword very fast. A sword light dragged out Lu Ying, and the wind and thunder were wrapped in the wind, but it did not rise above the mountain. They chose to stick to the ground and swept long, turned around the winding mountain road, and rushed to Qin Pingan and Lu Ba in an instant. In front of the bridge, the swordsman girl bent her knees slightly, hovered suddenly and fell to the ground, pinched the sword, and put the dangling long sword with purple electricity in the scabbard behind her back. The girl who was hurrying on the road stood there. Just now Yu Jian was busy eating cakes on her way. At this moment, the girl was holding the unfinished cake and hid her hand behind her, and timidly called out to Uncle Lu. Lu Baqiao looked strange and introduced with a smile. This is my nephew Nangong Xingyin, the younger disciple of senior brother Huang. When he entered the cave, senior brother personally gave him the Taoist name Tingni, and then gave him a secret Ku Pei Jin purple gold snake. Besides Nangong Xingyin sword refining, he also trains in thunder technique. She was taken up the mountain by her senior brother when she was very young. Her hometown is in Yuezhou. It's a beautiful place with beautiful mountains and rivers. It produces wine and is so beautiful. Nangong Xingyin is very envious of you. You Luapa Mountain. Qin Pingan nodded and smiled. I have seen fellow Taoist Tingni. The appearance of a young girl, her real age is not too old, she is a 20-year-old sword cultivator of the view of the sea. Genius. Cultivator Jiazi Lea Dongfu, Jianxiu entered the middle 5 realm at the age of 100, but he was still young. It means that a cultivator at the age of Jiazi is of course not easy to be in the middle 5 realms, but he can no longer be called a genius and Jianxiu is an exception. Like Qiu Ji of Jiaifeng from Tongye continent, he seems to have come from a continent of spiritual energy and sword intent, and there is also Chai Wu from Aquarius continent. It's beyond the realm of genius in the general sense. Comparing them is pointless. Learning boxing is not comparable to Chao Si's talent, and practicing swordsmanship is not comparable to Ning Yao's realm. Now it is a fact recognized by several mountains in the world. Lu Baqiao couldn't help laughing. Nangong Xingyin was wearing a little makeup today, which is absolutely unimaginable in Fenglei Garden. No wonder she came to Huaihuang County and found a reason to leave with her uncle. Said that he wanted to visit the town by himself, and finally meet at Luapa Mountain. Lu Baqiao said, the one next to the uncle, I don't need to introduce more, the famous Qianhuan Qin Shanju. Nangong Xingyin looked stunned and surprised. He had already hidden the cakes in his hand and he respectfully saluted, the sword of wind and thunder Nangong Xingyin has seen Shanju Chen. Lu Baqiao slandered endlessly, pretending and continuing to pretend. Qin Pingan smiled and said, it's a pleasure to meet you. Lu Baqiao rolled his eyes, pretending you continue to pretend. Last time Qin Pingan sneaked to Fenglei Garden to find himself drinking, Lu Baqiao actually mentioned Nangong Xingyin to him. Lu Baqiao said with a smile, we have been walking along the way and we have passed several immortal mansions on the top of the mountain. I saw that many cultivators of genealogy were also looking down the mountain. Why didn't anyone come to the foot of the mountain to get close and fight with you? Say hello? There are 62 mountains in the west. Apart from Piyun Mountain and Luopao Mountain, and the Longquan sword sect has moved away, there are still a dozen or so foreign powers who own the mountain. Almost all of them are similar to the Huangliang school, and they all belong to the bottom of the first class and the top of the second class in Beipingzu. Otherwise they would not be able to collect a few bags of gold and copper coins, and let the direct disciples come here to try their luck. Qin Ping was placed on deaf ears. In fact, it is mainly people who have been in officialdom and they all know the reason. It's like a large government office with more strict levels. Walking on the road, you meet a leader and you don't dare to get close to it. This has nothing to do with the character of the high-ranking official, whether he is approachable or not. Lu Baqiao asked, "What on earth did blacksmith Yuan think? He moved as soon as he said it was moved." Qin Pingan shook his head, "I don't know." Longquan Jinzong moved out of Chuzhou, Lu Xianying took over from Ruanqiong as the suzerain, Shanjun Weibo helped move the mountains and waters came, and finally a huge lake was created. However, the Dali court has not yet been officially named. It is said that officials from the Ministry of Rights of the court have suggested that it should be named Hon Kim Lake or Luojian Lake, and it is also said that it is Lizhu Lake and Fanglong Lake. It seems that today this lake, together with the cloud waterfall on Yuanmu Peak, the crayfish in the sunshine and moonlight, and the 3 rivers in Hangzhou town, make up the 10 sceneries of Zhenchuzu. Lu Baqiao said with a wicked smile, "On the way here I saw 2 Shanshuadi newspapers on the side of a ferry, and one of them was bad, saying that Xinjiang Mountain Sword Immortal Bamboo Emperor, serving as the chief worshipper of Dali, is actually better than almost every other day." Blacksmith Yuan, who did not participate in the discussion of Dali, was even more popular, and Zheng Yangshan quickly wrote a Fengdi newspaper to clarify. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Don't be too busy to gloat at misfortune, just wait. When Xinjiang Mountain descends, the Huangshan sword sect may change a word soon." Luopeishan established the next sect, and it is still the Kendo sect in Tonggishao. The Dali court has no concerns. It will definitely support a new Kendo sect after Longquan Jianzong to gather the old Zhu. The number of Qi of the Ying dynasty, and finally the 3 Kendo sects, formed a 3-legged situation, and stabilized the Qi fortune of Kendo in one continent. The only variable at present depends on whether the Yellow River in Fengliyuan can break through the battlefield in the wild world. If the Yellow River can become Jade Pu, the Dali court may be in a dilemma. Too pure, not as good as the Xinjiang Mountain Zhufeng Jianxiu who knows how to judgment the situation. Lu Baqiao pouted, "Become the Huangshan sword sect? It's all fake anyway." Xinjiang Mountain deliberately put the mountain down in the territory of the old Zhuang dynasty. The whole continent knows how it is, but there are good people who have helped to make some adjustments. At least 70% of the sword repair embryos still take Fenglei Garden as the first place. Of course I have to thank Luo Pashan. If there is no audience it would be hard to say. Maybe the situation will be reversed, from 7-3 to 3-7. Lu Baqiao hesitated for a moment, but still couldn't help but ask, "Is there any news about my brother?" Qin Pingan shook his head and said, "We don't have a newspaper from the Confucian Temple in Luopao Mountain." After a pause, Qin Pingan smiled and said, "No news is the best news." Lu Baqiao thought for a while, then smiled and nodded, "Very reasonable." Arriving at the entrance of Luopao Mountain, and seeing the mountain owner leading people up the mountain, Daoist Xianwei immediately got up from the bamboo chair, and Qin Pingan helped introduce the identities of the 2 parties. After Xianwei and the 2 distinguished guests bowed their heads, he asked in a low voice, "You don't need to record it in the book, right?" Qin Pingan hesitated for a moment and said, "You don't need to record here, but when you turn around and tell Kong Ho, Lu Baqiao and Nangong Xingyan in Fenglei Garden are visiting Luapa Mountain today." Lu Baqiao asked, "What do you mean?" Qin Pingan explained, "Someone in Luapa Mountain has just been in charge of compiling the chronology. First, Chunyang Lu Yen, then Xiao Yunyan and Mrs. Yen Yen, made the white-haired boy who was a self-appointed genealogy officer so happy, and several times in private, he asked Xianwei Daoist priest to let Xianxian replace her as a janitor. It's easy to discuss. If Xianwei wasn't the mountain of books left by Brother Dafeng, after hearing the numbers that climbed all the way he would be really tempted." Lu Baqiao immediately became excited. "Daoist Xianwei, remember to make a request to the monk who compiled the chronology, don't just write your name, it's better to add my realm with Nangong Xingyan, a Yuanying who is less than 100 years old, a Sevuer who is only 18 years old as a sword cultivator." When they got to the mountain, Qin Pingan asked the old cook to fry a few dishes with wine and drink with Lu Baqiao. Nangong Xingyan didn't want to disturb the reminiscence between Master Uncle and Qin Shanju, so he followed the girl in pink dress named Nuanshu to live in a mansion next to Lu Baqiao's mansion. When Lu Baqiao burped, patted his stomach and hummed a tune, and returned to his residence drunk, the girl Jianxiu seemed to be going out. Nangong Xingyan sighed softly, "Uncle Lu, do you really know Qin Jianxian?" The 2 sides saw that their relationship was indeed very good, and they were willing to come down the mountain to pick up Master Lu in person, and they could have a drink when they went up the mountain. Lu Baqiao laughed angrily. Otherwise? Feel the conscience and tell me, is your uncle the kind of person who likes to brag? Glancing sideways, Lu Baqiao said, hee, I really don't necessarily have a good conscience. There are some things that a girl is worried about and annoyed. Oh, it's too late to be happy in the future. Young, the scenery is not small. He is such an unreasonable person, so in Fenglai Garden, no matter young or old, male or female, whether it is the direct descendant of the patriarch or the outside disciple, they all like to scold or ridicule Lu Baqiao. It is not that he is wronged, it is purely Lu Baqiao asking for it. But it is such a man who is not stingy in his own sect, with good aptitude, high realm, and not bad appearance. When I came down the mountain, I was only on the side of a woman, and I didn't dare to say a word or take a look. Without saying a word, Nangong Xingyan directly hit Lu Baqiao in the rib with an elbow. Uncle Lu Baqiao stooped down on the spot, gasped for air, bared his teeth and screamed in pain. Don't look at the little girl who looks soft and weak, with a slender figure and gentle eyebrows. In fact, her temper is very short-tempered, coupled with her relationship with the flying sword of life, so in Fengliyuan, no one is willing to practice asking swords with her. Her ancestors and senior brothers in Jindan realm only teach swordsmanship, and never end up in person to learn from each other. Brother Huang He has always regarded this most likely to be the direct descendant of a closed disciple. Huang He, who almost never publicly praised others, only praised her as the only one who had the true meaning of the word lei among the swordsmen of Fenglai Garden. Lu Baqiao took out a jade card from his sleeve and handed it to Nangong Xingyan. He smiled and said, the congratulations sent by Chen Shanzhu in advance, you will give it to Xingyoheng later. Nangong Xingyan took the jade tablet, looked at it carefully and asked in confusion, this is it? Lu Baqiao had to explain. It turned out that Chen Pingan, who was the newly appointed hidden official at Nachanbazi Chamber, had sent out a batch of nothing cards, secretly made by the Summer Palace. The shape is extremely simple and elegant, the material of the jade plate is not too precious, and there is nothing outstanding about it, only one side is engraved with Hao Ran Tianxia, the other side is engraved with Sword Qi Great Wall, and the word hidden official, in small seal is carved next to it. The previous teeny lowercase number. Except for Tongye continent, which did not have a cross-continental ferry, Howran 8 continents, different ferry boat owners and stewards, each got a trouble-free card engraved with different numbers, such as Wuxiao 9, Tang Fei Qian 12, Fuyao Island, Weipin Ferry Steward Baishi 13, Aizhou, Nanji Ferry Boat Jianggaotai 16. On the Xinjia Island in the southwest, Lu Shun, the owner of Nishang, is 96. In addition, Dai Hao, the Thai soup of Aizhou, and Lu Yu, the falcon bell of Luxiazu, have their own harvests. And Chen Pingan himself kept 3 no-thing cards and gave Lu Baqiao this one, which was one of them, and the number was 6. Another no-mind card was given to Lu Lao Shinxian in Tongyi's Hao Qinghu Palace. The number was 8. Only the last piece was left, and Chen Pingan didn't intend to give it away, but kept it for himself. The number was 55. Lu Baqiao smiled and said, this thing is very valuable now. Fengliu and Jianxiu never cared about foreign affairs in the mountains. He was just at the wine table. Chen Pingan didn't say much about the value of these trouble-free cards, but Lu Baqiao was not a fool. Of course, he knew that this was a good thing that money can't buy. Lu Baqiao joked, I finally met a real person, how do you feel, are you disappointed? Nangong Xingyan snorted, disdained to answer such an idiot question. On the other side of Fenglai Garden she had seen the Mirror Flower's moon before and she had a mantra. How could there be such a handsome man in the world? Now it seems that when she returns to Fenglai Garden, the mantra will change slightly. There really are such handsome men in the world. Lu Baqiao shook his sleeves and said softly, it may be hard to like someone who is not destined to like you. Nangong Xingyan shook his head, Uncle sure, am not like you, I will never be half dead like you. Lu Baqiao smiled bitterly. Nangong Xingyan was in high spirits. Whether I like someone or who likes me or not has nothing to do with half a penny. It's like looking at the water from the mountains, the water and the mountains are still there, people who like it just go away, I just like it. Lu Baqiao smiled knowingly. Do young people today dare to love and hate so much? Lu Baqiao sighed, girl, the reason why you are so neat and tidy and not dragging your feet is because you just admire it, not really like it. Nangong Xingyan nodded, maybe? Ah, she's not a nympho. Lu Baqiao waved his hand, go for a walk by yourself, the guarded uncle is about to fall asleep. I warn you not to mess around. Uncle Lu is a very decent person. Nangong Xingyan snorted and turned to leave. Lu Baqiao sat alone on the steps and drank 2 pots of plum wine. The entrance was so good that he had a strong drinking spirit. The man hadn't recovered yet and his eyes were hazy. The courtyard is quiet, with the green window screens of plantains. Lu Baqiao is chewing the aftertaste of the wine, and he only feels that the plum wine is sour. He said that he was worried about a letter and asked Qin Pingan not to move. Of course it was a lame excuse. Lu Baqiao knew best about Qin Pingan's nostalgia. Qin Pingan heard about this, and as long as there is nothing to do, he will probably rush to congratulate him in person. Lu Baqiao just wanted to go down the mountain. Worry floated to the eyebrows, and the hearts of the old and young are exhausted. On the other side of the roof, someone smiled meanly. Brother Baqiao, don't frown, who are you worried about? Come and come, continue drinking. Lu Baqiao laughed and scolded, stood up, pointed his toes, went to the roof and found that there were already 6 pots of wine. Lu Baqiao immediately became a little cowardly, and Qin Pingan ignored him, and lifted the mud seal of the pot of wine by himself. Lu Baqiao gritted his teeth, sat next to him, hugged the 3 pots of wine beside him and scolded him. Qin Pingan laughed and said that whoever stopped the wine would have his grandson. Going down the mountain again and again I will grow old. The world is divided into a bright moonlit night, and 2 bachelors are drinking. There is no need to persuade you to really drink. You are so drunk that you don't know how many days in the world. Sword of Coming Chapter 990. In the corridor on the first floor of the bamboo building, Qin Pingan held a booklet in his hand. Nuanshu and Xiaomi sat on the left and right, and they all tilted their heads to read the chronology on the 3rd page. The white-haired boy said triumphantly, I am determined to omit the narration and reflect the future. Ancestor of the hidden official, if you hadn't reminded me that the chronology should be written in a simple way, the simpler the better, otherwise I will let you know what a text is. Xuanhuan in quality. Qin Pingan smiled, rolled up the booklet and knocked on the head of the white-haired boy. Nuanshu continued to lower his head to sew cloth shoes, and Xiaomi immediately turned his head away. While beating the white-haired boy, Qin Pingan laughed angrily. Please explain to me, the editor, what do the 3 annotations mean? It turned out that in the yearbook, it was written in the 6th year of Junping, on the 27th day of the 1st month, Fengliuan Yuaningjing Jianxiu Lu Baqiao, together with the 18-year-old Jianxiu Nangang Xingyan of the sea-viewing realm, visited Luopao Mountain, and the mountain owner Qin Pingan. It is negotiated to participate in the opening ceremony of Xing Yuheng's Jindanjian Xiu in Fenglei Garden. The owner of the mountain will go down the mountain this summer. On the 28th of the 1st lunar month, Lu Baqiao and Nangang Xingyan returned to their hometowns by Nujiadu. Note 1 lied about his age. Nangang Xingyan's real age is 21 years old. Note 2, Lu Baqiao walked into the mountain and borrowed the Guan Yi sword talisman issued by Longquan Jianzong to Nangang Xingyan. Note 3, participated in Fenglei Garden for the congratulations of the opening ceremony. Whether the mountain owner will pay for it himself, or will it be selected from the treasury of Luapa Mountain Springs, it is not yet determined. The white-haired boy said aggrieved, isn't the more detailed the better? Qin Pingan handed the booklet back to the white-haired boy, hesitated for a moment and said, get another supplementary book and all the annotations will be compiled into the supplementary book of chronology. In the future, only 3 or 5 people from Luopao Mountain will be able to read the supplementary book. The white-haired boy asked tentatively, there are only 3 or 5 people, only the mountain master Zhang Lu, the chief, the spring mansion master, and the old cook? What about Nuanshu and the right protector? Can't Mr. Imo also watch? Qin Pingan smiled and said, why, are you starting to sow discord? The white-haired boy raised his 2 fingers and said righteously, the sun and the moon can be learned, the conscience of heaven and earth. Qin Pingan turned his head to look, and a group of 3 people came to the bamboo building, all with happy expressions, and there was also the master of the fox country who came from the lotus root blessed land. She is in charge of longevity and treats the lotus root blessed land that has been ranked among the top rank. She is like meticulously taking care of her own vegetable garden. Every time she opens the door and enters, she will be in those landscape-shaped places where aura gathers, as well as the prosperous and prosperous cities. Take out 1 to 5 gold fine copper coins, first refining, and then condensing into mysterious places similar to post stations. These gold and copper coins are of course her private money. Qin Pingan roughly guessed the situation on the blessed land side, but just laughed without saying a word. Pei Xiang gave 1,000 blessings and said with a smile, happy event. Julien smiled and said, as soon as the sun returns home, good things will come to the door. It really is a New Year's atmosphere. Qin Pingan gestured for the 3 of them to sit down and chat, and asked with a smile, "What's going on?" Pei Xiang sat on the steps, turned sideways and explained to the mountain master, "Double happiness is coming. At the same time there are 2 golds in the blessed land." Eugenie left the blessed land after proving the Tao and left the land for the Hushan faction of Songlai Kingdom. "I have had a lot of luck," it can be regarded as an ancestor, but it turned out that someone made a mistake and by coincidence he succeeded in forming a golden pill. Chen Pingan nodded and asked, "The first Jindan cultivator is not Wei Liang, the old emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom? As for the warrior of the 7 realms, is it Qing Zongyuan? The great general Tang Tie, or the queen mother of Nanyuan Kingdom Zhou Shuzhen?" Zhu Lian shook his head and said, "The Hushan school chi trainer is named Gao Jun, who is high and low and the prince of gentlemen. The pure martial artist is named Zhong Qian, the belle of love, and the beauty of Qianli." Changming said with a smile, "The golden core cultivator and the golden body realm warrior appear in the blessed land. The matter itself is nothing. The most important thing is that the operation of the blessed land is on the right track. Spring plants and autumn harvest, the cycle of nature. Natural growth, full of vitality. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth circulates in all directions. If it is said that auspiciousness and spirits and monsters appear together in various places, it is only a sign, and now even if there is really the so-called land of fish and rice, where you can enjoy the coolness in the ancient books of the fairy family." Eugenie was once the first transcendental existence in the blessed land who switched from martial arts to cultivating immortal methods. Eugenie, who was successful in his cultivation, returned to his roots, returned to his old age, and Chongqiu, who was a close friend of his hometown, finally appeared in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom with the face of a child and the posture of an immortal with a sword. Eugenie left 2 books for the Hushan school before the immortal slew and soaring. One was a collection of martial arts experience from the best of hundreds of schools, and the other was a celestial book that helped him to prove the Tao and ascend. In this way, it means that the Hushan school has become more and more secure in the top spot on the mountain, because it turns out that the inheritance of Taoism left by the first-generation patriarch Eugenie is not the kind of high-level sermons that can only be put on the shelf for incense. But really being able to apply what they have learned is equivalent to setting up a ladder to the sky for the descendants of the Hushan sect. Now it depends on whether the second-generation patriarch of the Hushan sect, who is a golden elixir, can maintain this great situation. Chongqiu and Chao Qingqing were also born in the blessed land, and now they are both accomplished practitioners of Taoism, but there is a gap between them and the blessed land, because they both embarked on the path of Taoism in the vast world, so they are not recognized by a brand new world. The orthodoxy is like not being listed in the genealogy by the Zhu Shirtang, so the first person who is righteous is the Gaojun of the Hushan school. This person will practice more smoothly in the future without any accident, just like the great Tao of heaven and earth. The beloved is like the eldest son who is expected to inherit the orthodoxy. Qin Pingan said, "Wei Liang or Dragon Gate?" Pei Xiang nodded and said, "Wei Liang has been the bottleneck of the Dragon Gate realm in recent years. He has been out of the gate twice, but he has never been able to break the bottleneck." Qin Pingan said, "You guys find an opportunity to chat with him. Wei Liang's gains and losses are very important. Don't accidentally go into the devil. Maybe the first person to notice the vision of the blessed earth and earth is not you, but Wei Liang." Wei Liang, the supreme emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom, failed to become the first alchemy cultivator, but Qin Pingan was not too surprised. Wei Liang was still very old and he was too late to cultivate. The official mountaineering practice began at the age of Jiazi. Although there are secrets, it is a stone letter given by Luopao Mountain according to the agreement. There are 3 volumes of Taoism in it, and Nanyuan Kingdom chose a place with strong dragon spirit for the emperor who took the initiative to concede. In the land, a large construction project was built, and a dojo was secretly built, and Wei Liang's own cultivating qualifications were indeed very good, and the speed of breaking through the realm was not unpleasant. Although it was a shortcut, it could also be included in the category of sidetracking on the mountain, not a mind trick. Unrighteous demons and outlaws, Wei Liang's location and people have all, but in the end he was sent by Hushan Gaojun to take the lead, just like Wei Liang's organization was exhausted, and only one time of the sky was missing. This is actually the orderly operation of Lotus Root Blessed Road. There has been an invisible rejection of interference from foreign forces. However, according to the earliest agreement between Luapa Mountain and Nanyuan Kingdom, Luapa Mountain only guarantees that Wei Liang will be able to enter the middle 5 realms. I am afraid that people will not be satisfied. I always feel hungry and never get enough to eat. Zhu Lian said, Being overwhelmed by the illusory Tao, Wei Liang was not the first to form a golden elixir, which is actually a good thing for Luopa Mountain. The Tao of Lotus Root Blessed Land has become more and more condensed, and maybe there will be opportunities to appear in the future. A legendary little god. This kind of master of the blessed land of the cave, dubbed Little God, is similar to the flower master of the blessed land of hundreds of flowers, and the lady of Xianxia in the bamboo sea cave. They all came into being and are extremely rare. Chen Pingan said indifferently, the catastrophe in the cloud cave blessed land was a lesson from the past. This kind of thing is unpredictable. Jiang Shangzhen has always guessed that the accident in the Yunku blessed land was only the superficial reason for the manipulation of the old guys in the Yugui Patriarch's Hall. It's just that Jiang Shangzhen has been searching for so many years, but he has never been able to find that existence. This led to a very mysterious confrontation. The Jiang family and this deeply hidden existence can each be regarded as the masters of half the cloud cave blessed land. Zhu Lian smiled and said, if there is such a Taoist friend appearing, as long as the young master comes out in person, chats with the other party a few words, sits down and talks about the Taoism, and the negotiation is done. What's more, Luopa Mountain's cultivation and maintenance of the Lotus Root Blessed Land cannot be said to be inhumane and just. Qin Pingan smiled bitterly, it's easy to say. At that time, he was about to leave the blessed land of lotus flowers that had not yet been divided into 4 by Lao Guanzhu. Qin Pingan met the Emperor Wei Liang, who took the initiative to hold a banquet in the Beijing restaurant. At that time, His Majesty the Emperor was still in his prime. In order to rule the world was in turmoil, and Chongqiu resigned as the national teacher. Wei Liang chose the latter between the unification of the world and the immortality of the Tao on his own. He took the initiative to abdicate to the Prince Wei Yan, and the second Prince Wei Yun was imprisoned. Later Wei Xian once returned to the blessed land. As the founding emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom, he was the first human monarch in history to send alchemists to visit immortals. According to Pei Qian, the meeting scene at that time was very funny. Presumably from that moment on, Wei Liang had the heart of cultivating Taoism, but Wei Liang reached a verbal agreement with Luopa Mountain through the national teacher Chongqiu. But he hopes to see with his own eyes that Nanyuan Kingdom dominates the world. In fact, the implication is that Wei Liang is testing Luopa Mountain. If he succeeds in his cultivation, since he can call the wind and rain, he will help Nanyuan Kingdom to annex Songlai Kingdom in the form of an immortal. Tripartite forces. Luopeishan didn't say it could or couldn't at the beginning just because Wei Liang still didn't know very well. When there are more and more Qi practitioners in the world, no one will dare to say that one family is the only one, and it will naturally form a mutual relationship. The pattern of constraints, one world, such as the stalking of the martial arts masters by the Qi practitioners from various countries, the exchange of Taoism between the Qi practitioners, the competition for the single-plank bridge between those with similar Taoism, and every time the magic weapon on the mountain appears in the world, every Taoist practice is conducted. The competition for embryos is often accompanied by the fall of the older Qi practitioners in the intrigue. In addition, the various countermeasures against many Qi practitioners will appear one by one. I believe that Wei Liang now has realized this. With the prosperity of the Hushan school in Songlai Kingdom, there are more and more Qi practitioners. It is obvious that they have more advantages and staying power than Nanyuan Kingdom in the future. For decades, it was hard to say who merged with whom, so it was necessary for the Nanyuan Kingdom to expend more energy to support Yueshenzhen and Jianghu, and to compete with the cultivators of the Hushan faction. Pei Xiang said, Shanzhu, on the way here Zhu Lian and I discussed with Zhang Lu Changming. This Gao Jun and Zhong Qian always have to see each other and make the best of their friendship. Qin Pingan nodded and asked again, how did this golden body realm martial artist break through the realm? Pei Xiang said with a smile, it's a young warrior with no name of origin from the northern Jin Kingdom. He has good aptitude and good luck. He made a big fuss in the capital of the northern Jin Kingdom. The 2 warriors of the 6 realms led the pursuit, but one was killed, thanks to the temporary breakthrough, and they got an unexpected military luck on the way to escape. Having said that, Paixiang's eyes were charming, and he glanced at the smiling old man beside him. In the hands of the master of Taoism, there are 10 people in the world who are blessed with lotus flowers, and they can beat the drums in every battle. Only, the noble son Zhu Lian and the exiled immortal Zhu Lang almost made an unprecedented event. The feat of killing 9 people with 1 person in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom. What's even more strange is that Zhu Lianming can beat the drum alone to ascend immortal, just like he was tired of living and deliberately gave a head to Ding for nothing. The young Ding Ying who got the silver lotus Dao crown, began to climb to the top of martial arts. Zhu Lian smiled and said, I don't know when the first sword cultivator worthy of the name will appear in Lotus Root Blessed Land. Qin Pingan smiled and said, You can't ask for this kind of thing, you can only wait honestly. After a blessed land ranks among the top-ranked blessed land, the bottleneck of the way of heaven tends to be stable, and it cannot be broken with human and financial resources. There is a chance to appear monks in the upper 5 realms from the inside out, to break the bottleneck and soar to the vast world. The inferior blessed land is limited by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and it is an extremely difficult threshold to cross for local chi practitioners to enter the cave state. In the middle-level blessed land, the cultivator is expected to have a golden elixir and become a terrestrial real person who lives on the land. There is hope that the yin will travel far away from the body, but the outer body of the yang is difficult to shape. In the first-class blessed land, chi practitioners have the hope of forming a golden elixir, holding the vitality of heaven and earth to raise the yuaning, and even go a step further. Become a jade realm. Qin Pingan smiled and got up and said, Then I'll go see that earth immortal Gaojun Wei Liang and Zhong Qian. You guys can chat. After the chat is over, Ji Sifeng will convene another meeting in the Patriarch's Hall. Julian nodded. The corners of Paixiang's mouth twitched up, and the mountain master was still very unsurprising. On Mi Xiefeng's side, Cui Dongshan tentatively gave a suggestion. Let our Taoist Xianwei go to the Lotus Root Blessed Land. As long as his feet touch the ground, he doesn't need to say anything. It may be more effective than throwing 100 Taoist books to the Blessed Land. This kind of mysterious thing, I am afraid that it will not be possible to change anyone, really only the Taoist priest can do it. It's just that after Qin Pingan hesitated, he still didn't agree to this. Of course, it's not that I don't want Lotus Flower Blessed Land to grow Dao Qi, but am worried that this move will invisibly reduce Xianwei's own Qi. It would be a half-truth to say that Xianwei was thrown into the Blessed Land. Then Cui Dongshan even proposed a whimsical idea. All sentient beings in the Lotus Flower Blessed Land have the opportunity to practice martial arts. Courts of various countries, sects of rivers and lakes, immortal mansions on the mountains and open doors, not only cannot help but spread martial arts secrets and Taoist secrets, but also publish them. Related books. Weeds are overgrown and full of life. At that time, Qin Pingan only asked one question. In the 10,000-year history of the world, has there been such a precedent for the large and small sects with blessed land? Cui Dongshan replied, I have, but they have not been successful. The sequelae are huge and there are many hidden dangers. Almost all of them have turned into a mess. As a result, their respective blessed places have gradually recovered their vitality after hundreds of years of self-cultivation and rejuvenation, so I usually choose one. The inferior blessed land, the Aizhou family, the Fu Lu Yuxuan, and the Luxiazi Tianyu Dongtian Shu Dongtian have all made similar attempts, but they were not careful enough. This is called the foundation is not strong, the ground is shaking, so the biggest mistake is that they think too little, do too much, and mess around. The most fundamental reason for their failure is that their underlying thinking is not perfect, accurate and stable. The settings of the fundamental rules are extremely inappropriate. Relying on a bunch of half-assist artists to work behind closed doors over there, the so-called derivation of the Tao and the evolution of the context are just random. Then where did you get the confidence to do this? Of course, it's because of the presence of Mr. and the proud student of me. Mr. controls a vital general direction, and the students are responsible for formulating more than a dozen fundamental contexts and adjusting tens of thousands of details, which work seamlessly together. In the north of Tongye continent, the ancestral mountain of Xianxia is named Longmian, and the top of the mountain where the ancestral hall is located, also known as the Peak of the Heart, is a very poetic name. There will be a meeting of the Patriarch Hall today. The new owner of the mountain is a fairy named Dragon Beard, Situ Mengjing, a big dragon from the Middle-earth divine continent. He sat on the seat in the center of the Patriarch's Hall, facing the gate, with his back facing the pictures on the wall. It's a bit funny because this Middle-earth immortal on the genealogy of De Longqiu is actually higher than the patriarchs of the Little Longqiu above the statues here in terms of age, seniority and realm. Therefore the new mountain master respecting incense is exempted, and the one above the hanging statue really can't bear the respect of Xianjun Longbeard. This is the first time that the abbot of Situ Mengjing convened a discussion in the Zushi Hall. Before going back and forth, he just declared that Xianxia Fengshan was a jiazi, and the resolution of the Zushi Hall was not passed. Naturally, there would be no objection, and Xianxia cultivator did not have the courage to criticize half a sentence, and he would not dare in private. After all, Immortal monarch Longbeard was the most promising old patriarch to take over the position of sect master Delankyu, but Situ Mingjing was just unwilling to do so. Situ Mingjing was the first to arrive. Sitting on a chair, he closed his eyes and rested his hands together. An immortal who is not angry with himself. When Huang Ting asked Gen Xialankyu, he just handed out 3 swords and completely destroyed the heart of the entire immortal mansion. One sword directly slashed the mountain protection formation, the second sword seriously injured Lin Huizhi, the mountain owner at that time, and the third sword directly split the Zhu Shirtang in half. This is the sword fairy style. Bystanders will feel dazzled and emotional, and pity the authorities who are forced to lead the sword, but they will only have no masters and their hearts will be split. From the name of the sect, Xialankyu is very hydrophilic. The hills are surrounded by water towns and zealots. The waterways are developed and crisscrossed. There is a boiling stone platform in the mountain, and there is a rolling river outside the mountain. The 2 guards enshrined, respectively, an extremely rare moon-picking ape, and an old turtle that is said to have lived for thousands of years. As for the 2 old fish in the rolling mountain river, they were both Jindan realm cultivation bases. After the war ended, Tong Yezhou, a mountain top, originally had 2 nascent soul realm immortals, and was already a first-class mountain sect. In the north of Tongya continent, except for Yuguizang, whose thin dead camel is bigger than a horse, in addition Jindingguan, Qinghu Palace and Qingjing Mountain, and Bailong Cave are actually inferior to Xialankyu. As a result, the mountain master Lin Huizhi and his junior brother Quan Qingqiu were both detained by Situ Mingjing and returned to Delongqiu. What happened? Xiaolongqiu has not received any news so far, and he dare not ask any questions. Even putting aside the respected immortal Longbeard, even though Xiaolongqiu has lost 2 nascent soul ancestors now, he is still not too shabby. Today there are more than 20 cultivators who came to Sini Jinzu Master Hall to discuss matters. Except for one Jindan Earth Immortal, who was a close disciple of the previous mountain master, Lin Huizhi, the rest were cultivators from Longmen and Guanhai. In addition to the 2 guardian mountains and the 2 great sages of the river and the king of Huangshui, who are also in the golden elixir realm, Xialankyu can still have as many as 5 golden elixir earth immortals. As for the 6 important guest ministers who were originally qualified to participate in the discussion, other family tree cultivators were enshrined in their names, but Xiaolongqiu did not call a single one this time. For example, the chief guest secretary, the nascent soul immortal with the Dao name, Daffodil, and Zhang Luzhu did not return to the mountain to participate in such an important discussion. Wufu Qingmi, the abbot of Yiyuan Affairs, was able to attend this meeting as a non-voting delegate, which was invited by Situ Mingjing himself. After Situ Mingjing and others were all seated, he opened his eyes and said indifferently, "Hong Yen, go and call Linghu Banana Fish." The direct disciple of Quan Qingqiu, Hong Yen, who was the abbot of Xiaolongqiu recently, was a female cultivator of Jindan. She immediately got up and said goodbye and hurried to find Linghu Jiaoyu. When the girl was brought to the ancestor hall, she was arranged by Hong Yen to sit by the door. Linghu Banana Fish, the road name Fushu. A cultivator with a genealogy and a Taoist name means that he must be a cultivator in the 5th realm. She hangs a magic weapon Biluo on her waist, which is classified according to the mountain. It belongs to the magic weapon of the genus called the mountain. In the face of some mountain gods and land with low rank, she can train the mountain with this object, but it is only the rank of Biluo. After all, it can't be compared with the Tsushan duo who can move mountains and move mountains. The girl was also the only Xiaolongqiu cultivator who was pleasing to the eye when Huang Ting was cultivating here. In Jade Gazong's Jiang's Cloud Cave Blessed Land, Linghu Banana Fish was selected on the Washington Rouge list last time, and she was the youngest female cultivator. Originally, when the ancestors were discussing matters, she didn't have anything to do, so the girl just wandered around alone. Not far from the point of mind where the Zushi Hall is located, there is a forbidden immortal cave. On the stone wall, the official script and seal engraving, "There is no heaven." Lin Huizhi, the last mountain lord, Master Qingshuang, once retreated here to recuperate after taking the sword of Huang Ting. Passing through the cave, Linghu Banana Fish went to Panasonic's chess game place. Seeing that there was no one around, he first took a closer look at the ancient pine tree, then squatted down and looked at the bottom of the stone table. It seems that the young hidden official last time scared the little girl so much that she had sequelae. She always felt that the other party's talisman and flying sword were everywhere. The grandfather of Delankyu, the current master of the mountain, once joined hands with Han Jiangshu, the immortal of Wanyaozong, to play a bad game here. Cultivator, no outsider can break the game. The stone table chessboard together with the chess pieces formed a mysterious formation that could stabilize the transportation of mountains and waters. It's just that the last time a young hidden official came here as a guest, he played 2 moves of chess here, and it is said that there is also the vision of heaven and earth that attracts the stars, which completely overwhelmed the old chess game and really became a foregone conclusion. Then Linghu Banana Fish was soon called by the Jindan Patriarch to participate in the discussion. The girl sat down in a daze, her mind blank. Situ Mingjing said straight to the point, both Lin Huizhi and Quan Qingqiu have been removed from the Delankyu genealogy. When the immortal monarch's words were settled, the 2 portraits on the wall slammed to the ground. The monks looked at each other. There are 2 young female cultivators who are sisters. Except for the slight differences in eyebrows, eyes and expressions, the rest of the facial features and body are completely carved out of the same mold. The sisters are all direct disciples of Lin Huizhi. Although they went up the mountain late, they are of high seniority and talent. When they heard this, they all turned pale. Situ Mingjing continued, it's just an expedient measure for me to take over as the owner of Xianxia Mountain. After closing the mountain for a period of a year, I will be the owner of Xianxia Mountain for 60 years. Within a period of 10 years, when discussing matters in the Patriarch's Hall in the future, the seats will be determined according to the current number of people. Generally speaking, it will only decrease and not increase, unless I personally invite someone to take a seat. Except for Zhang Luzu's chief guest secretary who will continue to remain, the rest of the guest officials who did not come to discuss matters today and make offerings in name will all stop paying their salaries, and then write a letter to each other to draw a clear line, so that they will not use Xianxia in the future. Close the wild garden, kill what should be killed and let it go. If you have hatred for Xianxia but don't deserve to die, let it go. Make it clear with Tianmu Academy in advance that the Academy is willing to accept the demon clan, just send it over. No, if you are willing, let them leave the Xianxia realm, fend for themselves, stare at them secretly, go down the mountain to monitor the matter, and lead the team with Jindan Hongyan and Wufu Qingmi. You can ignore the ban on the mountain and discover who among the demons dares to violate the ban. If the murder is committed, it will be executed on the spot, and there is no need to report it to the Xianxia Patriarch Hall, but whoever dares to kill indiscriminately among the Xianxia cultivators will end up on the same level as the demon clan. If the rewards and punishments are inappropriate, I will execute them, and I do not need to inform Delankyu. 3 consecutive executions were made, and everyone in the Patriarch Hall was in danger. Next, Situ Mingjing directly locked the moon-picking monkey and the Lao Yuan into confinement, and asked the 2 mountain guards to enshrine him in the Baeudian, immortal cave, and retreat for a period of time. Lao Yuan stood up tremblingly without any nonsense, just said a word of obeying the decree of the immortal sovereign, and his back walked out of the Patriarch's hall sadly. The moon-picking monkey was full of anger, just about to speak to defend himself a few words, or I wanted to ask this immortal for an explanation, but I was kicked out of the house by Situ Mingjing directly with a sleeve and a chair, and then flicked his finger outside the gate, and the moon-picking ape who showed his real body and roared was like a heavy hammer. Flew directly out of Rui's tip, the huge body fell into the water and sank to the bottom, and then blood instantly filled the river. As for the great sage of the river and the great king of Huangshui, the fate was even worse and they were immediately expelled. In addition to being immediately removed from the Xuanhui genealogy list of the ancestors, Situ Mingjing also did not allow these 2 old fish to become elite Jindan cultivators to appear in the surrounding areas of Xianxia. There have been so many incidents and things are not trivial, but in the Ancestral Master Hall, the cultivators of the genealogy still dare not take a breath. The atmosphere is dignified and the needle drop can be heard. The 2 old fish spirits are still grateful to Dade, and they bowed to the immortal who gave such an inhumane decree, and both parties took the initiative to promise that they would never mention the old things. Devote himself to cultivation and dare not do anything wrong, so as not to be followed by people with intentions, which will damage Xianxia's reputation in the slightest. Situ Mingjing said indifferently, I hope you will do what you say. This is the power of a Middle-earth immortal. What's more, Xianjun Longbeard also has a surname Situ. In addition, in Xianxia the new mountain master implements the family law, which is justifiable. Then there was Linghu Banana Fish who suddenly got 2 great blessings that would make nascent soul earth immortals covet. Situ Mingjing gave 2 treasures in one breath, to this female cultivator in the cave, who was the first to participate in the discussion at the Zushi Hall. A grain rain gourd. It was once owned by Lin Huizhi, the previous mountain owner, and is also Xianxia's mountain owner's token and treasure of Jinshan. Historically, it can only be passed down from generation to generation by mountain masters. Following the ancestors of the mountain gate, it can only be refined in small ways. The grain rain gourd cannot be refined as a life object. Layer support. And this gourd is also Lin Huizi's junior brother, Quan Kinkia's dream. It can even be said that the reason why he came down the mountain from Delankyu was because he was instructed by his parents to run towards this half-immortal soldier. Because Quan Qingxiu has a good relationship with Guyu Gourd Avenue, which can help him improve the possibility of entering the Jade Pure realm. A fishing rod as short as a sword, wrapped around a bamboo pole with silver threads, flowing like the moonlight. This is the ancestral thing of Quan Qingxiu, which is equivalent to half a Dragon King basket. It uses the bright moon in the water as bait to fish for rare aquariums, especially the Narcissus monsters that worship the moon. Hong Yen, who was in charge of Xianxia's palm law, was full of envy, and suddenly noticed the line of sight of immortal Longbeard. As a result, Hong Yen found that there was an unreasonable long-term silence in the council hall. When she raised her eyes slightly, she realized that everyone was looking at her. Hong Yen shifted her gaze again, and found that the fairy was staring at her like that. Situ Mingjing asked, Hong Yen, talk about it. In your opinion, what is cultivation? Hong Yen was sweating instantly, and she said in a trembling voice, return to Xianjun, cultivate and seek truth from me. This is one of the cultivating purposes of the Taiping Mountain, right? Situ Mingjing narrowed his eyes and said, oh? Hong Yen was sweating profusely like sitting on pins and needles. You have cultivated the Tao for more than 280 years, and you have cultivated the Tao to seek the truth, but you have cultivated a true self who is greedy for the Guyu gourd and the fishing rod? If you practice like this, where can't you practice? Why sit on the chair of Xiaolongqiu's palm law, wasting your mind and time? Why don't you accompany the two guardians of the mountain to worship together? Why, after waiting for Jiazi, the mountain will be closed and the ban will be lifted, and I will return to Delankyu. Do you plan again? Who do you want to learn, your master Quan Kinkia's methods? Or Lin Huizi's ingenuity? Hong Yen quickly got up and knelt down again, prostrate on the ground, kowtow hard, and begged Xianjun to forgive her sins. Situ Mingjing leaned slightly, leaned his elbows on the chair handle, and interlaced his hands, just looking at the Jindan female cultivator who kept kowtowing. Hong Yen just kowtows as long as that immortal monarch without saying a word, she continued to kowtow. The nun's forehead was blurred with blood, and there was a pool of blood on the mud brick floor. As a half-outsider, Wu Fu Qingmi sat with Linghu Banana Fish on the seat closest to the door. Speaking of means, a great cultivator in the immortal realm must have nothing to do with moving mountains and seas. When he did it, Qingmi would only feel a little surprised and miraculous, but he couldn't say how shocked or admired it was. The key is that Situ Mingjing is ruthless. This person has a withdrawn personality. He has always liked to be alone and has a very sparse relationship with his family. In his hometown there are not many friends even on the mountain. And later went to the Great Wall of Sword Chi, which was not well known. After all, in that place where swords were cultivated like clouds, the threshold for sword immortals was a bit high. Situ Jiu returned to Howran World alive, and he was like a lonely cloud and wild crane. He never participated in family ceremonies like ancestor worship, and he was still unwilling to start a sect. Moreover, the Situ family has another thing that is extremely famous, that is, family women who are often stunning, so the Situ family is recognized as a beauty nest. Situ Mingjing finished eating the noodles, put down his chopsticks, exhaled a long breath, rubbed his eyebrows and had a headache. Situ Jiu had previously received a letter from Fei Jin sent by himself. Originally, Situ Mingjing and this Luxiaza sword immortal had never had any friendship. The last time they met was when Situ Jiu returned to Howran, traveled in Middle-earth and passed by Delankyu. The last time, Situ Mingjing couldn't remember exactly what happened hundreds of years ago, and he was not impressed by the cultivator of the same family with a rebellious temperament. It is estimated that both sides are like this, and they are not pleasing to the eye. Situ Jiu quickly replied with a letter to Delankyu. After Situ Mingjing opened the letter, he could feel a spit of saliva coming to his face. The other party cursed in the letter, and sure enough, you were right, Situ Mingjing. When we met for the first time, I thought you were a glib and fake gentleman. This Situ Mingjing can't laugh or cry, so much so that until now, Situ Mingjing doesn't know what went wrong with his family letter. The letter I sent earlier, roughly speaking, just said that the young hidden official would visit Luxiazu in the future and promised to find Situ Jiu for a drink. Damn, the Situ Jiu, the wording in the letter is really not ordinary. Everyone is an ancestor, who do you scold? It doesn't matter, it's like being bitten by a dog. Situ Mingjing suddenly asked. Linghu banana fish, do you know why I want to seal up the mountain for a period of 100 years? The girl shook her head, not pretending to be stupid. She really didn't know. Situ Mingjing said, Dragon Qiu, I hope that Xiaolong Qiu who goes down the mountain can join the sect, and the idea has not changed. Situ Mingjing didn't go around in circles and said bluntly, I am a mountain master here and I will personally teach you the Dalanqia's secret preaching method. The relationship between you and me is similar to an anonymous master and apprentice. 60 years later, you will, whether it is in the Jindan realm or the nascent soul realm, they will all take over the position of the mountain master. But over the years I have never met any exiled immortals from other places. Qin Pingan nodded and said, the whole is deep and profound, and you can observe the heart of heaven. Gao Jun hesitated for a moment and asked, Qin Jianxian, can you take the liberty to ask, if I compete with you in the way of life and death, what are the chances of winning? Back then, when Yu Zushi went down the mountain and went to the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom to wander the muddy water, he had just formed pills. Qin Pingan had no choice but to give a statement from his conscience. Sect leader Gao occupies the right place at the right time, and there is always a 10% chance of winning. Sword of Coming Chapter 991. There are days outside the sky and there are people outside people. The fallen plums are like piles of snow. When Gao Jun heard this, she didn't think that the other party was alarmist and deliberately deceived herself, so she could only sigh faintly. She has practiced Xinjia magic all these years, and it is not difficult to say that she is not diligent and diligent. She has never wanted to face this exiled immortal who has returned to the blessed land, and she still has only a 10% chance of winning. Since the other party dared to come to the Hushan faction alone, he must have something to rely on, or his own strength is strong enough, or there is a helping hand hidden in the dark, not to mention that in the encirclement and suppression of various forces in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom, this young man is handsome. Jianxian was surrounded by heavy siege, but in the end he stood out. He went to the city to kill Ding Ying and sat in the capital, which made Yu Zushi dare not step into the capital. After this battle, his name moved the world. Gao Jun ordered with his heart, withdraw the formation. Before the ascension of Master Yu, he left a hand-painted picture of the immortal formation for the Hushan school, but Master Yu made it clear that the mountain protection formation can only be a fantasy for the time being. Only when the vision of mana falling from the sky can it be put into practice. Gao Jun, who has always respected the teacher and the Tao, obeyed the decree of the law. After retreating and leaving the customs, he went out alone. He traveled for several years, visited the 5 mountains in the world, and visited the immortals in the mountains alone, hoping to find someone in the same way. At the same time, combined with Yu Zhenya's legacy, the picture, climb the world's 5 mountains and small world, in the middle of the mountain, Gao Jun climbs all the way. There is no way the ridge of the world emerges in the clouds, only to know that this mountain is the first. On the top of the mountain that seems to hang in the sea of clouds, Gao Jun actually found a relic of an immortal cultivating with thatch, but it can only be regarded as a relic, not a monument, because many objects in the thatched hut are exquisite, but after a while, there are still pines and cypresses in the brazier. Gao Jun can completely imagine the burning of a senior immortal. In the story of Bayin Taoism, in the northern mountain, the mountains are different from the world. When the heat outside the mountains is scorching hot, the mountains are still covered with snow. The mountain spirit looked arrogant and regarded Gao Jun as a people from the country, but the other party probably saw that Gao Jun's Taoism was not shallow. Although he didn't like her trespassing on the mountain gate, he did not speak ill of her, but only reminded Gao Jun. In this mountain you cannot rely on your strength to take things and seize treasures. When the weather is clear you can see the top of Dongyue and the sea. Purple clouds are formed on the stone, the sea is bright and the sun is red, suddenly thunder and lightning are mixed, the wind and rain are raging, the day is dark as night, and you can see with your own eyes a mountainside deep pool in the sky. Poisonous dragon, Qingming nodded with essence, majestic earth veins, body as long as 100 zhang, winding mountain climbing, crushing countless rocks, a few blinks of an eye, the poisonous dragon wandering around the peak, then created a mountain like a snake walking 18. The brand new stone path of the plate was smashed by a tall crowned man with pale golden eyes, holding a white jade seal with ancient characters like bird seals. After being knocked down into the long tan, a Taoist tactic appeared on the surface of the water. Thousands of golden words, like a decree of immortal formation, will be suppressed at the bottom of the pool. Punish it for 300 years of spiritual cultivation in the deep pool before it can see the light of day again. In Xia, where the peaks were dangerous and murderous, Gao Jun saw a young-looking scribe full of Taoism and invited Gao Jun, who was dressed in apricot and yellow robes, to be a guest in the cave. Shrinking his hands and twisting the talisman, he followed the young scribe, and saw the grand mansion standing in the red and yellow clouds, like an imperial palace built in the sky. They are all non-living people walking in the middle, the breeze is blowing on the face with the fragrance of bluegrass. The literati laughed and said that this is smoked wind, rare in the world, unique to my mountain, not only can enter the face of the 7 orifices to benefit the root of Taoism, but also can be a common woman. Nourishing the face, a portrait of a goddess was hung in the main hall. Immediately, a maid brought the incense stick. The scribe first rolled out 3 sticks of incense for Gao Jun, saying that the incense in the world is divided into mountains and rivers, and then he took Gao Jun to burn incense and pray to Lingyue. In Xuanhuan, after they took their seats, the scholar asked Gao Jun if he was married, and if he was willing to become a Taoist partner. After visiting the famous mountains and rivers in the world, Gao Jun finally perfected the immortal picture left by Yuzushi, set up the formation hub, and followed the instructions of the Taoist book on refining objects. Gao Jun carefully selected a few pieces that can naturally instill the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The treasure is closely connected with the mountain roots and water veins of the Hushan school, and the immortal sword left by Yuzushi is the mainstay, and finally a great mountain protection formation with both offense and defense is created. If Yu Jini was the first person to attain the Tao and after all he was alone, then Gao Jun was the true founder of the Hushan school. Protect the way and spread the branches and leaves. Before Qin Pingan appeared, he had done some rough landscape exploration. It could be seen that after the proper management of the Hushan sect over the years, if Gao Jun could one day achieve nascent soul realm and secure his position as the #1 person in the world, he would find it again. If a suitable successor can make another golden pill, then in the next 300 to 500 years, there will be disciples and talents in the sect. People will practice martial arts and cultivate their true spirits, and the two will not be delayed. Gao Jun asked, "Can I ask Qin Jiangxian's age on the mountain again?" Qin Pingan shook his head with a smile and said euphemistically, "The guests in the mountains don't say longevity." Gao Jun asked again, "In the vast world, are there many people who have attained the Tao like Qin Jianxian?" Qin Pingan had no choice but to nod and say, "A lot. But there's no such thing as Tongxian and Dao. There are indeed many Qi practitioners in the nascent soul realm." Gao Jun inevitably looked a little sad, looked up at the sky. It's not easy to practice in the mountains after all, it's just a frog at the bottom of the well. If you don't know that the scenery outside is magnificent and the wind is high in the sky, that's all. It happened to be Gao Jun, a mountaintop Qi cultivator who knew the affairs of Tianhui, and was so worried that he didn't dare to slack off in the slightest. Over the years, Gao Jun has always had the worst idea. One day, exiled immortals like Qin Pingan will be jealous of the treasures of this blessed land. They will gather for profit and visit together. It will be like rain falling on the world. How do you resist foreign enemies? But to tell her to plan secretly now, work together, plan ahead with Qi practitioners and great masters from all over the world, and then make a covenant with those landscape gods, it really makes Gao Jun feel that he is out of power, and he is afraid that he will be able to stop him. 1 or 2 banished immortals and then Qin Pingan, these heavenly immortals are really in a group, the whole world, wouldn't life be ruined? The immortals fight, each showing their magical powers, but it is no different than the masters in the past. At most, it will bring disaster to a city. The number of Qi practitioners is more than 1, and then completely let go of their hands and feet, and offer endless attack magic weapons. Inside is a tragic tragedy. So in the depths of Gao Jun's heart, he had a bold idea. She gradually understood what Ding Ying had done. Of course she didn't agree, but she understood. Gao Jun wanted to meet the god, who was in charge of the operation of the avenue behind the scenes, the sun and the moon as the dojo and the mountains and rivers as the courtyard. Longmen, Qi practitioners scattered the aura of Qi mansion, as if condensed into a water dragon, upstream like water. Whether it can finally jump over the Longmen in one fell swoop, is a great threshold, becoming it. You can find a Dan room in Xuanji and Xuanzhong, don't open the sky, so there is a saying on the mountain that to form a golden alchemist, the party is my generation. If you can't get through it, the aura can't be rushed against the current 3 times, resulting in Dantian Qi. The sea is completely dry, and it is very likely that he will fall down and stop at the cave for his entire life. However, Qi practitioners condense a golden elixir, and the elixir becomes several grades, just like the secular imperial examination, and there is a clear distinction between superior and inferior. A gold elixir, the level of condensed pills, the size of a pill room, and whether the formation of pills can evoke a vision that resonates with the heavens and the earth, all have their own particulars. It can be regarded as a unique gift, and this is one move. After this, it is the yuan who can travel far away from the yin spirit, supplemented by the yang spirit outside the body to sit in the small world. As the book says, the great master Lingran controls the wind and travels freely between heaven and earth. Generally speaking, Jindan and Yuanying are collectively referred to as the stream of earth immortals. Qi practitioners travel alone in the vast world, mountains and rivers. Even if they establish a sect and serve as the founder of the mountain, there is still no problem. I speculate that your ancestor Yu was a first-grade Dan Cheng, and the rank of Jin Dan, the head of Gao, generally belongs to the second grade, which is quite good. Even in the vast world, having a second-grade golden pill is something that many immortals dream of but can't get. The fate of fate. Simple to say, easy to understand. Seemingly chatting, Qin Pingan just talked about some common sense of monasticism that is not so profound and obscure in the Haran world. Maybe the earth immortals of Yunxia Mountain can say it casually. But for Gao Jun, who needs to experience and comprehend everything by himself, it is the first-class golden and jade good words. These words have the power of clearing the clouds and seeing the sun, and their preciousness is not inferior to the Taoism left by the ancestors of Yu. Qin Pingan was just talking and said some unintentional remarks with Gao Jun. In the final analysis, he just regarded her as a fellow Taoist on the road of cultivation in the future, and said a few ordinary words with a normal heart. As a result, when the words came to an end in an instant, Qin Pingan actually moved slightly in his heart and couldn't help but look around. In the dark, there seemed to be some kind of indescribable sense of heaven and man, as if he had received a glimpse of this world. Appreciation and recognition. Feeling relieved, there is no longer the stagnant feeling of walking in the Hushan school before. At this moment, Qin Pingan felt more deeply about a certain sentence of the abbot of Nanyuan Gokxingxiang Temple, and a certain truth of watching the night trial of Qinghuang Temple back then. Drilling pot umbrella, chain, teaching, chanting at the same time, it also verified Zhu Lian's guess that this lotus root blessed land is very likely to have a prototype of little god, just waiting for opening, and then refining. In fact, the previous blessed land literary movement, the appearance of a woman who was born and manifested, and then discovered by longevity, can be regarded as a sign of some kind of natural occurrence. Today, when Qin Pingan returned to the blessed land after many years, he quickly gained a certain degree of resonance between the world and the world. Could it be that the old cook's mouth has really opened up? Gao Jun could not perceive this vision of heaven and earth. She just immersed in it and asked curiously, what kind of realm is above the 5 realms and the earth immortals? The first realm of the upper 5 realms is called Yupu. Pure jade? It means returning to the original, flawless beauty? Qin Pingan nodded with a smile. Returning to the truth and going back to the original will not be disgraced for life. It is like a plastic body without dirt, a tower without leaks, and a person who is able to stay clean of the world. A cultivator who has entered this realm, even if a frog at the bottom of the well jumps to the mouth of the well, even if it is far away from the sky. It is far away, but it is possible to look at the world with a vision that is closer to the whole picture and the truth. In the history of Lotus Flower Blessed Land, Eugenie was regarded as the pioneer of Taoism, and naturally there was no specific realm division. Even Eugenie made a lot of careful attempts and extreme caution about the Yin gods traveling far away. Therefore, Gao Jun has not dared to travel far away easily. He only dared to choose the auspicious day when the sky is clear and clear. In the middle of the night when the moon was clear and white, he only tried to get out of the body, in the thousands of miles around the Hushan school. Back then, Ding Ying, who was in the battle of life and death with Ding Ying, who monopolized the martial arts of heaven and earth, did not know what secret method he used, but he was able to escape from the body and transform into a majestic Dharma figure as high as Gunyu Mountain. Gao Jun still has lingering fears and is fascinated by it when he wants to come. Unfortunately, she did not practice at that time, and laymen can only watch the excitement, otherwise it will be a once-in-lifetime excellent opportunity to observe the Tao, and the benefits are endless. Most of the delicacies enter the city through this gate, and the ladies and nobles in the city, when they are out on a spring outing or when the lotus flowers are in full bloom, they will come out of the city and gather in the waters around the lotus by boat. For the weft, the water is densely covered and the shuttles come and go. The women on the boat are all exquisite in makeup, competing for their beauty, and the children of Yui spend a lot of money to set up a boat feast. There are literati elegant gatherings on both sides of the strait. Exploring flowers is also a pleasing thing to the eyes, so there are often poor young children who make a living by picking up the embroidered shoes left by the beauties on the water and shore. Only half a mile away from the lotus flower, there is a village and wild pulp workshop. The drying field is covered with snow-white pulp. There is a fish market by the river that temporarily gathers and sells parallel products such as fish, shrimp, turtle and crab, and there are boats gathering in the lake. Compared to this place, it seems extraordinarily secluded and shabby, but there is a man and a woman who are out of tune with such a scene. Along the way, the masters of the pulp mill are frequently looking at him. Okay, it's not so surprising, it's still a moving woman sitting on horseback as if walking out of a picture scroll. She was wearing a bright red silk robe with sleeves and a jasper belt at the waist, lined with a brocade skirt with flowers, and the skirt and tie were embroidered with clouds and phoenixes. The woman stepped on a pair of matching plain satin shoes, and as the horseback bumped up and down, occasionally a small white silk socks were slightly exposed. With such a makeup and color matching, it is easy for people to be unable to suppress the clothes, but she looks good when she wears it. Under a tree, there is a burly young and strong man resting cross-legged here, looking at the old man who looks like a servant. Most of the refining masters, who have never worn the name of the world, are not the Tang Tie who usurped the throne and proclaimed himself emperor. The old man smiled and asked, "You are Zhong Qian, let's find it." Zhong Qian said helplessly, "He came to me specifically? What does your majesty think? Didn't I make it clear that I would have someone tell me? I will neither make enemies of the northern Jin nor seek refuge in the Songlai kingdom. Those who are so haunted have all chased the border between northern Jin and Songlai." The old man was hunched, let go of the horse's reins, put his hands behind him and said with a smile, "Tang Tie is a green onion, please don't move me." Zhong Qian chuckled, "The old man has a good tone. In this northern Jin kingdom, dare to say that, His Majesty the Emperor." Tang Tie, the former general of Langwu, made a trip to Nanyuan. After returning home, the emperor of northern Jin quickly gave Tang Tie permission. The latter changed his body and sat on the dragon chair. It is said that there are some twists and turns here, because back then in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom, Tang Tie wanted to betray the northern Jin dynasty, but the old emperor Wei Liang abdicated, Wei Yan ascended the throne, and Princess Wei Zhen did not want to marry Tang Tie. Touched by a gray nose, Tang Tie returned to the northern Jin kingdom. With a fierce attack, he raised troops at the border, marched north and led a large army to suppress the capital. The northern Jin kingdom changed its dynasty and surname. Zhong Qian asked, "Is it a human being or a ghost, or a fairy?" Nowadays the world is weird and all kinds of weird people and weird things come out all at once. It seems that the turning point is the battle of 10 people. After a few years, the mystical claims in the book have become true. In the past few years, the man has encountered many unimaginable oddities in his single-handed journeys. The woman was always sitting on the horse, squinting and smiling. Zhong Qian disliked this the most and sneered, "Fox spirit." Pei Xiang covered his mouth and smiled. It was the lord of the fox country and Zhu Lian who came to see Zhong Qian. Zhu Lian said, "Young people shouldn't be so aggressive. As someone who has come here, I'd like to give you 2 pieces of advice. It's better to provoke men than women. It's better to provoke busy people than idle people." Zhong Qian said angrily, "Stop beating around the bush, tell me what's your background. What do you want to do with me?" When it comes to catching and fighting, he really does not worry about Tang Tie, the armed sage Xuanhuan, these old antiques who have been famous in the arena for a long time, and the sword sharpener Lu Zong, disappearing and disappearing, retiring and retiring. Every battle is a battle. The battle of 10 people in the world, these old guys who belong to the previous generation of jianghu, it seems that it will not help. Once Ding Ying died, all the limelight in the whole world was taken away by Yu Zhini and Lu Tai. The first person of each of them, one said to be ascending, the other disappeared without a trace, and the other rivers and lakes became leaderless. Instead, a large number of things that knew the magic of immortality appeared, as well as some inexplicable mountain gods, Narcissus and sneaky monsters. Just like the woman on horseback in front of her, she looks like a ghost. How can a secular woman look so good-looking? The old man smiled and said, "When you go out, treat people with sincerity. First, register your number. My name is Zhu Lian. As for the elder sister on horseback, her name is Pei Xiang. You just said she is a vixen, so just pretend that you can talk and praise her. Look good." Zhong Qian frowned, "Which Zhu Lian?" Zhu Lian smiled and said, "The one you think is the most unlikely." At 1:30, a big cake is baked on the buttocks and I guarantee that I will burn my mouth in a short time. If you don't believe it, go back and borrow a stove from the farmhouse. When Pei Xiang heard the words, he burst into laughter. Was it possible that the old cook when he was young was like this? Zhong Qian couldn't take it anymore, so she stood up immediately, clenched her fist in one hand and tapped her chest lightly. Come on, punch here. If I take a half step back, I will lose. If I don't move, you will hurry up and get out with this vixen as far as you can. Zhu Lian complained, how can there be such a question? Boxing? It is not in line with the rules of the rivers and lakes. Zhong Qian twitched the corners of his mouth. Then you stand still and let me punch you? Zhu Lian said solemnly, then let me do it. Just as Zhong Qian was about to speak, there was a flower in front of her eyes and a punch. The man fainted on the spot and slumped to the ground. Pei Xiang rolled his eyes at Zhu Lian. You are a great master at the top of the mountain. Is it fun to play with a warrior of the 7 realms like this? Zhu Lian squatted beside Zhong Qian, who was almost foaming at the mouth. Pei Xiang asked with a smile, how do you feel? Zhu Lian replied, simple and honest. Pei Xiang is speechless. You can just say that he is stupid. Zhu Lian smiled and said, this kid is not serious about killing and even has a soft temper. Only when he is forced to jump over the wall, he will fight for his life, and he will have to add some murderous aura in the future, so he needs a good knife, and it is also a knife practice. Good materials, Chao swordsmanship is very suitable for him. After a while, Zhong Qian opened her eyes in a daze as if she had been slapped. She was awakened by a slap. She was still a little dizzy, her vision was blurred, and she could vaguely see the old man's face. Zhu Lian smiled and said, are you awake? Just as Zhong Qian was about to take a sip of pure infuriating energy, the old man squatting beside him put his fingers together and tapped several acupuncture points one after another, but Zhong Qian couldn't move for a moment. Zhong Qian's eyes widened, blood splattered. This was a sign that he wanted to reverse his true qi, but the result was still in vain. The old man wrapped his arms around his sleeves and joked, you're still young and your experience in rivers and lakes is still a little shallow. Pei Xiang turned his head and looked at one place, smiling playfully. Came for a ride. The young woman was valiant, with a saber on her back, and angrily scolded, what are you going to do to brother Zhong? She tucked one hand into her sleeve, and twisted her fingers around a fairy talisman that she bought with a lot of money. Zhu Lian turned his head and smiled and said, I am a bad old man. What can I do to you, brother Zhong? As for the lady beside me, what is she doing? What is she? She has never been married in her life, and she is lonely and old, leaving only one of her beloved inkstones to be buried with a portrait of a certain person engraved on her back. Her eyebrows and eyes are vivid and lifelike. Next to the portrait is an inscription like an inscription inscribed on the heart. I had known it so stifled people's hearts, and it would be impossible to see each other when we met. The young woman smiled suddenly and asked tentatively, this senior, are you really Zhu Lian? After all, today's world is weird. Gods, monsters and ghosts are emerging in an endless stream, and there are many mountains and rivers and heroic spirits now. Presumably that Zhu's resurrection from the dead is not completely impossible. Zhu Lian said decisively, how is it possible? Of course not. I have an undeniable feud with that old killer. If the dog is revived and I see it again, I will definitely let him fly. His appearance is old and his words are vulgar, especially his eyes are squinting at himself. This allows the young woman to be sure that it is definitely not Zhu Lian. Indeed, how is it possible that Zhu Lian cares so much about the appearance of women in the world? Not to mention that even if Zhu Lian never died at the hands of Ding Ying, it was just a rumor on the rivers and lakes. So even if this person has lived in the world for a long time, and has a long life like that of Eugenie, far surpassing the worldly master of martial arts, when Zhu Lian is old and full of gray hair, but no matter how old the old man is, he will still be the one who taught countless beauties to sigh with emotion. Between heaven and earth there is Zhu Lian. Zhu Lian. I don't know which sad person said about the past rivers and lakes. Of the 10 women, 9 hated Zhu Lian, and 1 was because they had never seen him. It is rumored that there are 2 female ghosts who are highly skilled and like to roam the world, plus a number of goddesses who have made gold statues in temples and rivers and waters, and are still thinking about someone for a long time, from birth to death, and then from death to death. Life, they have never let go of the same person. This young woman surnamed Song just thought it was unbelievable. She couldn't imagine how there could be such an infatuated silly woman. Isn't she just a man as for? After that, the 2 women continued to ride horses. Zhu Lian led the horse slowly, and Zhong Qian also walked. The old man said that he was looking for a place to drink and talk about business at the wine table. Zhong Qian hesitated for a long time, but couldn't help but ask, Old senior, Ming people don't speak secretly, are you really not Zhu Lian? Zhu Lian raised his hand, patted his cheek and said with a smile, "What do you think?" Zhong Qian said sullenly, "Why did the senior call himself Zhu Lian just now?" Zhu Lian said, "To tell the truth, when I was young I was also a handsome guy who was overstepped by a beggar, a pretty girl from 10 miles and 8 villages, no matter if she was married or married, she was very fond of her. I guess the old dog thief will be ashamed when he sees me." Pei Xiang quipped, "Yo, what your husband said is interesting. Look in the mirror, hurry up and look in the mirror." At the same time he did not forget to take advantage of Zhu Lian. The young woman surnamed Song glanced at Pei Xiang, who made herself ashamed, and then at Zhu Lian, speechless for a moment. Songleguo Lake Mountain School, the host and the guest are in the pavilion. Qin Pingan said, "To take a more extreme example, when a small group of Qi practitioners can attack a city and pull out a stronghold by themselves, and destroy a city in an instant with a gesture, do you think such a thing is reasonable for a world?" Gao Jun said, "The lonely yang does not grow and the lonely yin does not last long. There is always a mutual complement and victory over each other. For example, when I visited the immortals from afar, I saw a lot of bizarre visions. The gods of the 5 mountains and the immortals in the mountains will be jealous of each other and restrain each other. Take a step back and say they can't restrain me, and if there is Qin Jianxian, who is an extraordinary person from Xianghua and Xinjia, can he put things right?" Qin Pingan asked back, "Who will restrain us? Are you self-disciplined with the benevolence, righteousness and morality in your heart?" Gao Jun seemed to be answering the wrong question, but also answered it with a rhetorical question. "Qin Jianxian, have you ever met the master behind this blessed land?" Qin Pingan nodded and said, "I have seen. The other party is a great monk of the 14th realm, a Taoist priest with the Taoist name Bixiao Cave Lord, so the whole blessed land actually has a nickname called Guan Taoist Temple. The immortals are above the Puru, and the immortals are ascending, and the one higher than the soaring is the 14th realm. This is an extremely rare thing. Generally, the sects that sit in the heaven and the blessed land are at most ascension cultivators. These people behind the scenes, each has his own needs. Some are for the purpose of obtaining the treasures of heaven and earth, and the cultivator embryos that are included in the genealogy are carefully selected. Some are just for a spectacle, and some immortal mansions are poorly managed, but are dragged down by the blessed land, putting the cart before the horse, leading to the exhaustion of the treasury in a slump, and finally can only sell the blessed land and sell it to others." Gao Jun nodded, took a deep breath and said straight to the point, "Qin Jianxian, you can tell the purpose of this visit to the Hushan faction." Eugenie was able to enter the nascent soul realm in a middle-rank lotus flower-blessed land, and then soared away from this world, but this does not mean that after the lotus root-blessed land ranks first, the more heavenly Gao Jun will definitely be able to. Followed by, according to the calculation on paper, you can take advantage of the situation to go up a step, break the bottleneck of heaven and become a jade. The root of it is that there is a big gap between the cultivating qualifications of the two sides. Gao Jun just got the first move, and then was favored by this Fang Tiandao. However, going up the mountain to cultivate the Tao, in addition to innate aptitude in root, is also very important. Therefore, whether Gao Jun can become the first Jade Pure Realm monk in the history of Lotus Root Blessed Land in the future can only be said to be between 5 and 5. At least after this meeting, Qin Pingan was more optimistic about Gao Jun, who had a calm temperament and almost no hostility. The only problem is that Gao Jun does not have a certain lofty ambition that he believes must be achieved. It can also be said that it is some kind of ambition that is different from ordinary people, or even different from the whole world of monks. This may be Gao Jun and picture scroll 4 people, the first people in the world in history. The biggest difference lies. It's just that this kind of thinking can't be helped by others. It can only be a coincidence of Gao Jun's own way of repairing the road. Gao Jun was silent for a long time, forcibly pressed the Dao heart ups and downs and asked, "Qin Jiangxian's Luapa Mountain, how many Jindan cultivators like me are there? If you don't count the next sect, let's not talk about the famous guest of Luopao Mountain, there is only one Jindan Earth Immortal." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "There are more Yuanian cultivators and there are more upper 5 realms. Among them there are 3 in Ascension Realm, named and anonymous, and Luopao Mountain temporarily has 3. Such frankness suddenly made Gao Jun, who was not good at words, even more silent. A treasure bottle continent and a desolate mountain are still like this, so in a vast world, isn't the Ascension Realm everywhere? Qin Pingan hesitated for a while. The mountain owner who always goes out and walks the rivers and lakes first falls into the 3 realms to respect. It is rare for Wangpa to sell melons and boast. Don't get me wrong, the head of Gao, there are not many mountains like Luapa Mountain. Gao Jun smiled bitterly and changed the subject. I don't know what Qin Jiangxian's so-called idea is? Qin Pingan said, I intend to conclude a contract. In addition to sect master Gao and Wei Liang of Nanyuan Kingdom, there are also the gods of the 5 mountains, several gods of Jianghu, the monarchs of the 4 kingdoms plus Zhongqian, and a few warriors of the 6 realms. It is equivalent to a cultivator, a pure warrior, of mountains and rivers, an emperor under the mountain, and we have entered into a relatively loose and rough contract together with us. Is used to restrain the behavior of the monks and martial arts masters on the mountain. The original intention is to clarify some of our real thoughts with you and your forces. Gao Jun was suspicious and said doubtfully, Qin Jianxian, you have both strength and confidence in Luapa Mountain. You can improve the rank of the blessed land and it is easy to take life and death. Why do you need to do this and restrain yourself? Qin Pingan smiled and said, Sect Master Gao, as the only golden elixir in the blessed land for the time being, is not a life and death to the Hushan faction. So what is the result? Why don't you have the slightest bit of rules? Just relying on Gao Jun's own selfishness and personal thoughts, he can maintain the whole Hushan sent 16 Qi practitioners and hundreds of lives and humiliations? Gao Jun was suddenly horrified. When did the Hushan faction have 16 Qi trainers? Why not 14? But the next sentence made Gao Jun feel the chill of Qin Jianxian for the first time. At the same time, make it clear earlier so that someone will not be punished in the future by complaining about not being taught. Gao Jun looked solemn and asked in a deep voice, If I insist on not participating in this matter, what will happen? Qin Pingan smiled and said, You can rest assured that the Gao sect and the Hushan faction will not be the same. In the future, as long as the well water does not violate the river water, you and I can continue to live in peace. After walking out of the pavilion, Gao Jun said that the Patriarch's Hall should respect the incense before making a decision whether she should be one of the initiators of the contract. Qin Pingan was waiting at the pavilion for her to return with the incense. He turned his head to look at the woman's back and said with a smile, Gao Jun has no Gao Jun in his heart, can he still hope that there is a Gao Jun in the eyes of the Hushan school? Gao Jun paused in footsteps, did not turn his head to speak and continued to move forward. Except for the pavilion on the mountainside and the Patriarch's Hall on the top of the mountain, there are no redundant buildings on the hill. Gao Jun stepped into the silent and uninhabited Patriarch's Hall. An old man was in charge of the lights in the hall. The candles were like rafter candles, which made the originally dimly lit hall look extremely bright. In addition, wait until Gao Jun stepped into the hall before closing the door. There will be a vision, the sword energy and thunder and lightning fill the room, and the dragon cloud pattern surrounds the beams and columns. A crystal-clear snow-bright long sword swooped and swirled slowly around Gao Jun, like a bird in the shape of a man, very intimate. Gao Jun gently pushed aside the long sword, paid 3 sticks of incense, put it into the brass incense burner above the god's case, and then knelt on the futon to kowtow to the hanging statue of the Patriarch. After she got up, she closed her eyes and rested. Opening his eyes and looking at the hanging statue of the Patriarch, Gao Jun made a decision in his heart. In fact, there was a lot of controversy in the Hushan school about the hanging statue of Yuzu in the Patriarch's Hall. Just because of what kind of appearance Yuzushi above the portrait should have, there are different opinions and each has an opinion. Some say that it is a fairy-like old appearance, which is more majestic, and some say that it is a young appearance, which is both elegant and outdated. And also said that the child Yujian's appearance after drawing Dao is the most immortal. At that time, Gao Jun was upset because of the quarrel. The key was the 3 different opinions, behind which represented the 3 hilltops of the Hushan sect. Therefore, in the past few years when Gao Jun has governed the Hushan faction, whenever she encounters difficult things, she will always ask herself the same question, what would she do if the ancestor Yu was present? Qin Pingan sat in the pavilion watching several people fishing with rods by the lake, whispering, occasionally raising his head to glance in the direction of the hill, mostly guessing his identity and his relationship with sect leader Gao. Walking slowly, Gao Jun returned to Songlai Pavilion. After she was seated, she said, The last question, how do Qin Jianxian and Luopeishan view this world like a family yard? Gao Jun's implication, of course, is whether Luopao Mountain will fish for the sake of its own interests, which will be renamed the Lotus Root Blessed Land. Everyone goes out to watch flowers and there are many fishermen by the river. Qin Pingan smiled and said, If the fisherman is a market portal, he will catch fish to feed his stomach. Naturally, if he catches a few fish he will not finish eating and drying it, otherwise he will keep it in the water tank at home. If the family is more prosperous, there is a pond and fish are stocked in it. The thin rivers and streams are thick with their own heritage. This is like the situation of the Hushan school. In the future, they will compete with other countries to compete with other countries for those who are suitable for cultivation. Xianxia Taoist species, stocking swimming fish in this lake is nothing more than feeding Xianxia magic and teaching the secrets of Taoism. But to me, since the whole world belongs to Luopao Mountain, where are the fish, what's the difference? As for whether I will thicken the sect and undermine the world, that's why I want to conclude a contract. The cultivator should be careful to drink poison to quench thirst, and the Xianfu Mountain Gate should worry about accumulating wages and instant success. It is not the way of longevity and long-term vision. There are high and low techniques, but some principles are not divided into big and small. Chen Pingan finally added, I didn't come up with this metaphor, it was first proposed by a person named Lu Chen. If Gao Jun realized something, he said to himself, at the root of the matter, things are divided into yang and yin, and there is a need for someone to guide the way for the heavens. The ancestor you once said for me that I was good and bad, maybe it was because my realm was not enough at that time, but the ancestor you did not say. It's too far-reaching, it just mentions people who practice, prove the Tao and live long, want to live with the heaven and the earth, and the purpose is reversed, so they have always been rejected by the heaven. My generation of cultivators who have attained the Tao and then feed back the heaven and the earth, repeating the cycle, can be called the ultimate practice. Chen Pingan nodded, and he was indeed able to become the #1 person in the world. It is not without roots and reasons that Gao Jun was attracted by the will of God. Gao Jun's realm at this time is in a precious situation that seems to be 6 gods without masters, absent-minded, but in fact in harmony with the Tao. Before Yuzushi left the customs for the last time and was about to travel far away, Gao Jun once asked, what does it mean to be a Taoist? Eugenie used the sword to control the saber and flew away, the light of the sword shot up into the sky, cutting through the sea of clouds above Hushanpai in one line. Spreading out her palm again, Eugenie asked her to hold her breath and focus her eyes on it, only to see that the lines on her palm were like mountains, and the mist rose in the mountains, turning into a picture of a market thousands of miles away. Inch umbrella people and mountains are united, and the Tao refers to the immortal mountain, and the immortal mountain cuts Taishu. Billions of living beings, picturesque mountains and rivers, 1,000 miles of autumn in the palm of your hand. Chen Pingan didn't want to disturb Gao Jun's state of sitting and forgetting, and when she recovered she asked with a smile, Headmaster Gao, did you come from a scholarly family? Gao Jun didn't know why the other party asked this question, but he understood a little bit of self-deprecating expression, shook his head and smiled, I'm not a good person, I went up the mountain to practice martial arts very early, and I didn't read much. Although the Hushan school has a large collection of books, it ranks first in the 4 countries. But I don't like reading since I was a child, and the books I have read in my life, if I read them intensively and extensively, add up to a total of less than 100 books including boxing manuals. Compared to the sword immortal in green shirt in front of him, Gao Jun only felt that the other party's cultivation, knowledge, mind, and bearing were worthy of the 2 titles of Master and Sword Immortal. A leaf knows autumn, it can be seen that the vast world is indeed both awe-inspiring and daunting. Could it be that Lu Tai's ridicule was not all lies? It's just that hearing is false, seeing is believing. If there is a chance you really want to leave the bottom of the well, go out and see the world at the top of the well. Then, for some unknown reason, Gao Jun noticed that the other party's face was somewhat resentful, and after holding it for a long time he said, Master Gao is savvy when reading books, it's rare, it's rare. Gao Jun hesitated for a moment and said, Qin Jianxian just said that our Hushan faction has 16 Qi practitioners, but as far as I know, only 14 people seem to be practicing at present. Qin Pingan smiled and said, it's okay to say it straight because these 2 Qi practitioners have no sinister intentions towards your Hushan sect. They just regard this place as an excellent dojo. They must also have the meaning of supporting the dragon, so the sect master can continue to pretend he doesn't know as long as he knows what he knows. One of them is now beside the armed Saint Qing Yuanshan. His real name is Huan. They are foreigners from Tonggishao who followed Lu Tai into the Blessed Land. I'm not unfamiliar with them. I can recognize them at a glance because they have dealt with them before, and they will remain anonymous here. It's such a boring move, sect leader Gao doesn't have to think about it. Words are both a bridge for people to communicate with each other, and there are many divergent paths in the world which also come from words. Back then, in Fangbao, the young Taoist priest Huang Shang, the most memorable thing for Chen Pingan was the copper coin sword, 3 Tongbao Judiezwan. Gao Jun's expression changed slightly, because Zhu Xiyu had left a treasure bag, and told her that after conjuring pills in the future, if she could go further, she could accept 2 people as direct disciples. But Zhu Xiyu did not mention more details, and the names of the 2 happened to be Huang Shang and Huan Yin. But Gao Jun searched the archives of the Hushan school and found no records of the 2, so she mistakenly thought it was an immortal prophecy from the unpredictable prophet. Yuzushi, never. I think the 2 sides have long been in the Hushan faction. As for the existence of the armed sage Qing Yuanshan, Gao Jun is very clear. When the ancestor Yu left Nanyuan, Qing Yuanshan went back to the Hushan faction, but this martial arts master has changed his name over the years, and now he is in the Hushan faction. As for the lantern and incense burner in the Zushi Hall in the mountain, as for what agreement Yuzushi reached with Qing Yuanshan, why Qing Yuanshan was willing to remain anonymous, Gao Jun never asked. Some things, as Qin Pingan said, are roughly in his mind. Gao Jun asked, the relationship between Lu Tai and Qin Jianxian? Qin Pingan said, meeting by chance is a good friend who has never met again for many years. Going down the mountain together, Qin Pingan asked, does sect leader Gao know of a warrior of the northern Jin dynasty named Zhong Qian? I've only heard of it, but I haven't seen it yet. That Zhong Qian, a weak-looking, burly man, was always timid when I heard that he was talking to others. However, according to the secret intelligence of the Hushan faction, this person is a completely different face when he is aggressive. Gao Jun asked, Qin Jianxian, can I follow you to Luapa Mountain? Qin Pingan smiled and said, it's a matter of etiquette. But I have to go to the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom first. After 2 hours, Sect Master Gao can go to the heights of the Sea of Clouds and the Wind, and I will go to meet you. The capital of Nanyuan Kingdom has the purity of Xinxiang Temple and the noise of Xuanhuan Lane. There was once a person who wanted to go to Beijing to take the exam, and sadly returned to his hometown. In the past, I followed Old Man Yao to the top of the highest mountain in my hometown and stayed at the top of the mountain at night. In the early morning, the young kiln workers climbed high and looked into the distance, and for the first time saw a spectacular sunrise scene. Later, I strayed into the lotus flower-blessed land, where the twilight was deep in the Xinxiang Temple, and I suddenly heard the sound of the bell and drum, which was melodious and ethereal. It was as if in an instant the heart was quiet. There is one method in the world which can solve all kinds of sorrows, settle the infinite mind and open the lotus of mind. When the 2 walked to the foot of the mountain, Qin Pingan said goodbye, and his figure turned into a sword light, which was fleeting. Gao Jun, who had seen many strange people, was still caught off guard, stunned and quickly relieved, with a sword fairy demeanor. In the evening, the blue and white mountains are about to burn, dozens of splendid sword lights close together, and they appear on the top of the mountain in a blue shirt. When the sun sets and the moon rises, in the dark room of heaven and earth, like a fairy unleashing a lamp, the moonlight is like water and the sky is white. Sword of Coming Chapter 992. On the tail of the first month, another snow fell in Chuzhou, but it was not big, with some rain. It is like a secluded beauty wearing fox fur and a green skirt, and she is like a high-ranking scholar in the snow who is familiar with Uryo. On this day, in the middle of the night in Lotus Root-blessed land, in the twilight of the vast world, Jin Dan monk Gao Jun and Jin body state martial artist Zhong Qian visited Luopao Mountain, but they were arranged in different mansions, and the 2 sides have not seen each other yet. In the dead of night, Gao Jun didn't want to breathe here, absorb the spiritual energy in the mountains and didn't ask for it. After all, she was suspected of being a thief. Since she couldn't devote herself to cultivation, she went out alone and climbed the stairs. On the top of Jilin Peak, Gao Jun, I saw a fellow man who was taking advantage of the moonlight to climb up the mountain to enjoy the scenery. He was sitting on the railing at the moment, holding a wine glass with a jade pot spring wine bottle with green glaze dripping beside him, spreading out a bag of sauce meat. Drink by yourself. Gao Jun could not recognize the other party, but the other party recognized the head of the Hushan school at a glance. The young and strong man was quite surprised and asked, Sect Master Gao, why are you here? Gao Jun asked suspiciously, who are you? Hearing the local accent is like drinking warm wine. The burly man said with a shy look, my name is Zhong Qian, an unknown in the northern Jin kingdom. If sect leader Gao recognized me, it would be a strange thing. I have never been to the Hushan school, but I have seen a portrait of Gao Jun in the study of a son of an aristocratic family in the northern Jin kingdom. Still look better in real. Gao Jun was stunned and slapped his head and said, I have seen Master Zhong. Zhong Qian hurriedly put down the wine glass, clasped her fists and returned the salute. It's a pleasure to meet you. Because the two sides were not acquainted, it was only the first time they met, and they were not chatty people, so they were silent for a while. In the midst of the mountains and the moonlight, the fellow villagers who meet in a foreign land have their own thoughts, and their minds are endless. Gao Jun followed Qin Pingan away from Lotus Root Blessed Land. It was the first time he arrived and set foot on Luopao Mountain for the first time. The real Luopao Mountain was very different from the Xianxia immortal mansion that she had imagined earlier. When she arrived at Jisa Peak, in addition to feeling the aura of heaven and earth that was far more abundant than the Hushan school, she only said that the scenery was full of eyes, neither miraculous nor strange, as if it was similar to the Hushan school. Zhong Qian was the first to break the silence. I was brought here by a strange old man and a woman named Pei Xiang, who brought sect leader Gao here. Gao Jun said, It is the master of this mountain, the sword fairy Qin Pingan. Zhong Qian laughed at herself. Sure enough, sect leader Gao has more face. The old man who claimed to have a different hatred from Zhu Lian, claimed to be the housekeeper of Luopao Mountain. As for the charming woman named Pei Xiang, she seemed to be a worshipper. Zhong Qian said, I heard that there will be a discussion in the Patriarch's Hall at Zhouji Sifeng. Gao Jun nodded and said, Qin Jianxian invited me to sit in on the discussion. She wanted to decline, but when she thought of her current status, she was not only the head of the Hushan faction but she agreed. This time, Gao Jun took the initiative to leave the blessed land. The original intention was to learn more about the personnel of Tianhui. So if you want to understand Luopeishan and Heiranshan faster and more intuitively, is there a more shortcut option than participating in a discussion in the Zhu Shirtang? Zhong Qian smiled and said, I will also participate because I promised Luopao Mountain to serve as a guest secretary. Gao Jun hesitated for a moment and asked, Master Zhong is not planning to return to his hometown? Zhong Qian nodded and said, I won't go back. I'm different from sect Master Gao. The places where I drink wine are the same. As for people from my hometown and not my hometown, I have no idea since I was a child. I heard that there are hundreds of Xinjia wine brewing here. The price is a bit expensive, and you have to use those kinds of money from the gods on the mountain. I haven't seen it for a while. I have become a famous guest and I will get a salary every month. Besides, I heard that there is a boxing to learn on the Luapa Mountain. For example, Chong Chiu, the national master of Nanyuan, is now from Luapa Mountain, and I plan to ask him about boxing techniques in the future. The shadow of the famous tree of people, the masters from all over the world who gathered in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom in the past, Ding Ying, the supreme leader of the demon sect, has an unpredictable temperament, who dares to get close. Yu Zhini of the Hushan school, immortal and unattainable. As for sharpening the knife, people like Lu Zong and Tang Tie, although they each have the style of their masters, all have mixed reputations. Therefore, in the minds of the younger generation of Jianghu children, they are not as respected as the Master Chong, who is known as the One Sage Wu Zongshi. And close. In a courtyard on the mountainside, Pei Xiang was exercising his supernatural ability to view the mountains and rivers, carefully observing the words and deeds of the two outsiders on the top of the mountain. Zhu Lian was lying on the rattan chair with his hands folded on his stomach, his eyes closed, and he didn't stop Paixiang's unethical behavior. The content of the conversation between the two people on the top of the mountain is clear. Pei Xiang asked, Yin Fang, do you think Gao Jun looks good? Without outsiders, she still habitually called Zhu Lian Yin Fang, which was the pseudonym Zhu Lian used when he was secretly poking around in Qingfeng City. Zhu Lian smiled and said, Each flower is in each eye. In the eyes of the disciples of the Hushan school, Gao Jun is naturally the most attractive woman in the world. If you can kiss xianxia, you would be willing to die under the flower. Pei Xiang sneered and said, She doesn't see where she is going, and her beauty is not comparable to Hongxia. Zhu Lian turned his head and glanced at Paixiang's palm. Seeing that Zhong Qian was drinking wine with sauced meat, he smiled. The taste of his hometown was all in his sense of taste. In fact, from Zhu Lian's point of view, Zhong Qian, who keeps saying that she doesn't care about her hometown, will definitely miss her a lot in the future. Instead, it is Gao Jun. One day she decides to leave Lotus Root Blessed Land. Pei Xiang asked, In the future, the two golds in the Blessed Land will only increase, right? Zhu Lian nodded and said, This is nonsense. It's really worth paying attention to. It's just that in the future, there will be several Earth Immortal monks and Spirit Refining Realm warriors. The old cook rubbed his hands and sighed. The snow melts, the spring breeze thaws, and big fish and small fish burst into ice. Pei Xiang asked softly, Yen Fong, this time back to my hometown. Julien smiled and said, apart from being a groom for you, what else can you think? The vast world, the heaven and the blessed land, are actually not bad, nothing more than the rich eat the poor, and the officials eat the rich. The poor eat the earth and the immortals eat the ordinary. It turns out that when you eat and eat, they all become a handful of soil. If you wake up from a dream, if you don't wake up from a dream, you turn your head to be empty. Pei Xiang asked, what do you think of Gao Jun and Zhong Qian's different choices? Julien said lazily, birds do not know how good the mountains are, they wander around in the small courtyard. Pei Xiang thought for a while, then frowned and said, don't give a shit, what does it mean that Gao Jun is unwilling to leave the blessed land? Zaning is the head of a chicken and not the tail of a phoenix, her vision is too small and she made the wrong choice? Or is it that Zhong Qian is in despair? The foot of the mountain is like walking into the courtyard from the mountains, from the great master who is expected to become the number one in the world, and turns out to be a mediocre warrior who is not good enough to be on the side of the world? Julien opened his eyes and shook his head lightly. As I said earlier, each flower enters its own eye, the same person's different choices, different people's same choices, two flowers bloom, each representing a branch. Pei Xiang rolled his eyes charmingly, you are the most crooked. Julien laughed and said, it's a pity that Yuan Ying doesn't read. Pei Xiang raised his brows, the pictures of the Fox country have always sold very well. They used to be a source of wealth for Qingfeng City, second only to the beauty of Fulu, but now it's good, it's almost piled up in the Hu country secret library, this is not can't get along with the money? Julien rubbed his brows and sighed, how dare you touch Luapa Mountain in this way of making money? Tomorrow's Ji Sifeng will discuss matters. If you have the ability, you can bring this up to the sun yourself. Anyway, I don't dare to beat him to death. Pei Xiang suggested, don't we have the next sect now? Chief Zhou has a cloud cave blessed land on Tongye sect, and the blessed land has the rouge list of Washington. It is sold to Chief Zhou at a discounted price. This income, it can just be counted as my private house money. You help to contact the cloud cave blessed land, negotiate the price, help to sell, and then we will share the account later? Isn't it equal to an extra long-term income? Julien didn't say whether it was feasible or not, but just asked. In the Fox Kingdom you have disciples and grandchildren and you are expected to form elixir? Pei Xiang nodded, so there are more and more places where money is needed. Although I saved some money in the past, it is not a problem that I spend more than I put into my account every year. Julien smiled and said, to be honest, if you don't talk about the long term, if you want to make money quickly, you have to make a profit. The old cook clearly understood the meaning behind the words of the Lord of the Fox country. He was whining around and complaining about his bitterness. Paixiang's mention of the resale of the palace pictures was just a rubbish. Relocated from Zush Qingfeng City to Lotus Root Blessed Land, Hu Kingdom is like a closed-door country, and it has cut off contact with the outside world, especially the Qi practitioners who regard Hu Kingdom as a place to visit. Charmed, there is no way to make extra money in the past. Although Pei Xiang and a group of henchmen are sitting in the Fox country, there will be no complaints for the time being. It will turn into an out-of-control flood burst. In addition, Fox Charm is no better than a cultivator or even a spirit of the mountains and wilds, who has long been accustomed to the feasting in the red dust, and closed the door all at once to practice in solitude, making the Fox country like a slightly larger dojo. Although Fox Charm is for the preaching of Taoism, Luopao Mountain and Hugua have long agreed on paper that as long as the Fox clan practitioners hope to enter the cave, they can go out alone to travel to the four countries of the blessed land, to travel the world and get involved in the love affairs of men and women. Pei Xiang said cautiously, the Fox country has taken root in the blessed land, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has almost doubled. If it is converted into immortal money, in fact, Luapa Mountain has already treated the Fox country very favorably. Julien crossed his hands, tapped his thumbs and said with a smile, don't worry about this kind of internal affairs, otherwise it will be seen outside. Pei Xiang suddenly became nervous. Julien said slowly, the Fox clan naturally likes to be lively, but Luopao Mountain is a pure place. This kind of contradiction cannot be reconciled for the time being, and it naturally involves the relationship between the Fox country and the blessed land. A cornucopia of money can be rolled in just by running it casually. It will never ask the Fox country to close its doors. After all, don't compete with anyone who is competing with money. Just allocate a piece of land to you in the blessed land, with a radius of thousands of miles. As soon as the gate of the national government opens, it doesn't matter how you earn money, we Luobaitian just collect the bills from each of you Fox Chi trainers, just lie down and collect money, you are happy, we are also happy, why not 4? That's why you have discussed this matter with me more than once. How can you find a compromise solution that will not interfere with the normal development of the four kingdoms of the blessed land, and at the same time allow all living beings in the Fox Kingdom to live comfortably and not feel that life is going to be easy? I laughed and said at the time that I had no worries about food and clothing, and my practice was faster, and I didn't have to be treated as a prostitute in a kiln by those cheap practitioners who came to the door just to take off their pants. However, the young master said that it is more appropriate to say that it is more appropriate. The sudden change of life from noisy to deserted is also bitter. This is the same mentality as the old man who retired from the officialdom. There is no bitterness in the busy traffic. Because it was a private chat with no outsiders present, I was on the son's side, and every time I mentioned this, I didn't have any taboos in my words. I said that once I wanted to do everything well, it would be difficult and I would be in trouble everywhere. As long as you don't think about it too much, things will become simpler if you say it simply. For example, allowing Hugua to open the door earlier, Luopeishan will learn from the fact that the national teacher Chui you set up monuments in the mountains, throw some iron rules and regulations for you, and deliberately stand on the sidelines. Individual a few years and 10 years later, Luopao Mountain will have another well-documented and law-based settlement after the fall. All living beings in the Fox country who violate the laws and regulations should be killed, they should be closed, and the words are ugly, just do this, fox skin. The source of the talisman is all there. Now, what is the price of a fox fur talisman in Beipingzu? Isn't it more profitable than your Peixiang selling a few pictures? Young master said to wait. I want to wait for the people of the four countries in the blessed land to gradually get used to the fact that there are immortals, ghosts and ghosts walking around the world. You will appear again at that time, even if the number is larger, you will become accustomed to it, mortal master. Get used to the weird things of gods, and then from the dark and different way to the coexistence of people and ghosts, each has a prototype of going to the countryside. At the same time you are like a closed mountain. In 10 years I will open the door and go out in the future, and the cultivation level will be high. From the early days of 2, 3 or 3 groups, and then going out alone in the future, there will be fewer accidents during this period. In the final analysis, the sun treats all of your Fox clan as living people, otherwise you think that the plan I proposed, the sun really doesn't know that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, but maybe in the sun's view, this disadvantage at every turn a few dozens of Fox lives, can be saved with a short-term gain destined to be smaller. Wait and see 3 words. In short, the sun cares more about your Fox country than you, the master of the Fox country. Peixiang sighed quietly, the mountain master has a heart. Zhu Lian said indifferently, Shi's kindness should be changed from light to strong, and from strong to light, but turned into hatred. The punishment should be changed from severe to lenient, first lenient and then severely complaining about its cruelty. So the next sect chose Tongyi's Hao, and Cui Dongshan served as the first suzerain, not Chao Qingqing. If the sun returns to Luopao Mountain to practice, I may be the happiest person, no one? Zhu Lian was silent for a moment, looked up at the night, smiled and said, the more we hope for this world and the more kindness we give, whether the world returns kindness or vice versa, the more we will care and we will more tired. If you think it doesn't matter, probably this is a kind of practice. Zhu Lian raised his palm, reached out to grab it and clenched his fist. There are only 2 kinds of strong people in the world. What have I gained from this world? Whether it is ambitious, awe-inspiring, well-mannered and famous in history, or swindling and viciously competing for wealth, fame and fortune, the difficulty is up to me. I am not embarrassed. Who dares happy? Zhu Lian raised his other hand and waved it out. What have I paid for this world? If you are poor, you will be alone and your reputation will not be revealed. If you read the article, you will benefit the world. If you want to make a great contribution to the world, you will ask for your own hardships and slowly turn to the poor. Walked on ice. Finally Zhu Lian stared at a strange sentence. Young master, master, young master. Loans are like giving and debt collection is like collecting. The discussion in Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall was set at the current time. Today at the twilight time, the square is indeed a bit quieter than before, thanks to Cui Dongshan. There are only the mountain owner Qin Pingan, the great housekeeper Zhu Lian, the longevity master, and the Chuanfu Wei Wenlong. Right protector Zhou Mili, Qin Wanshu, Qin Lingjun, Xiaoma, Guizhuzhio and Peixiang. There is also a Shanjun Wei Bo who is known to wear a pair of trousers with Luo Pashan. The uninvited Xiego and the white-haired boy under the pseudonym Kong Ho were also present, standing beside Guizhuzhio who was yawning. In addition, the person who was not called to participate in the discussion today is the gatekeeper Xianwei. In fact, has the Taoist Xianhui always recorded the genealogy of Luopao Mountain? As for Zhao Shuxia, he is still practicing boxing in the bamboo building. There are also Zhao Huan, Xin Yuanji, Zhang Jiajin, Nailan Yuyu, the direct disciple of Changxing, Yao Xiaoyan, disciple of Kongho, Shiro, Zhou Junchen, Zhao Dengao, and Tianjior of Chaotu Shop. Qin Pingan first introduced Gao Jun and Zhong Qian, and then introduced to them the identities of the people in Luopao Mountain. Gao Jun and Zhong Qian both looked a little nervous. After all, it was the first time they had seen the so-called ranked in the fairy class, in the books of the blessed land. The patriarch of Luopao Mountain is actually a woman with a long life, and I don't know if it is her name or Taoist title. The goddess in a snow-white robe and a gold earring, Beiwe Mountain Lord Wei Bo, said that he welcomed Gao Jun and Zhong Qian to Piyun Mountain as guests. The little girl in black with two sparse yellowish eyebrows and a cotton bag slung across her shoulders is the guardian of Luopao Mountain. The girl in the pink skirt with gentle eyebrows and two guests congratulated the two guests. The boy in Tsing-yi who likes to drop his sleeves when walking, named Chen Lingjun with the Taoist name Jingqing, hesitated to speak, but finally nodded with a straight face, without asking the other's realm. The young man with the yellow hat and blue shoes had a soft expression and a slight smile. According to Qin Shan's introduction, Xiao Mo was a sword repairer, and beside him was a sable hat girl with red cheeks. A white-haired boy with a pamphlet in his arms, although he was a handyman disciple of the outer door, claimed to be the genealogy officer of Luopao Mountain, so he was able to attend the meeting today and record the proceedings. The last person to introduce was the girl with the inkstone hanging from her waist, named Guizhuzhio, a direct disciple of Qin Pingan. Since then the auspicious time has come. Under the leadership of Qin Pingan, everyone filed into the Jiaisfeng Patriarch's Hall. Longevity squinted and smiled. Qin Pingan turned his head and asked with a smile, "President Wei, what do you mean? Whether it is to follow the old customs on the mountain, or Luopao Mountain makes an exception for fellow Taoist Kongho, I have no opinion." Wei Wenlong was also full of helplessness. Ever since Master came to Luopao Mountain, Lord Yingguan respected him as Palace Master Wei every time he met. Qin Pingan looked at Zhang Lu's longevity and she smiled and said, "Taoist fellow Kongho should be happy. It doesn't matter to me whether I become a monk in the line of Zhang Lu or not. The white-haired boy is full of belly slanders, and if he doesn't join the line of Pom Law, I'm happy but I'm also worried. Most people don't know, even that Pei Qian once said that the person who Luapa Mountain can't provoke the most is this Zhang Lu who is smiling all year round. Since there are no additional ideas, Kongho doesn't need to join the line of Pom Law." Qin Pingan didn't continue to embarrass Kongho. Everyone sent a boxing book, and it would not be too much to change the editor. The third thing is that Luopeishan is going to buy new hills around it. Longquan Jianzong has completely withdrawn from the boundary of the state, and several hilltops have been removed by the Shanjun Wei Bo who used his natal supernatural powers, leaving a huge lake that has not been named yet. Clouds and mists rose in the council hall, and a landscape painting of the mountains to the west appeared on the ground. Zhong Qian just felt that it was an eye-opener. How could he still play like this? Gao Jun's eyes lit up and he quickly thought about it. It seems that his own Hushan faction and the Songlai Kingdom's court, which already has many Qi trainers, can also copy this move? While eating melon seeds, Chen Lingjun stared at the Piyun Mountain and smirked to himself. "I just didn't have enough money in my pocket, otherwise I would have bought Brother Weiss Mountain together." Wei Bo held a teacup and looked at the silly Uncle Chen with a smile. Chen Lingjun noticed Wei Shanjin's sight, and immediately stopped eating melon seeds. His eyes wandered and he stopped staring at Pai Yunshan. Wei Wenlong glanced at Lord Yingguan. Qin Pingan nodded lightly. Wei Wenlong got up and walked into the mist, introducing the historical origins, spiritual foundations and various treasures of mountain materials of nearly 60 hills one by one. Except for the very few special mountains in Longji Mountain that have absolutely no possibility of purchasing, each of them has a rough estimate. The purchase method is not complicated. One is that Luopeishan directly buys it with fairy money. As long as the other party is willing to sell it, the price can be negotiated. The second is to exchange things for land, and there is a gap between the psychological expectations of the other party. Luopeishan uses various heaven and earth treasures, spiritual tools and magic weapons to make up for the difference. The last one is to let the other party make an offer by himself, and Luopeishan will weigh the pros and cons and consider whether to buy it as appropriate. The three methods, the only purpose, is that the sale is not benevolent and righteous, not forced. There is nothing that is bound to be won, and must be in the pocket of Luopeishan. After that, Wei Wenlong began to report his wealth and family background. This is also the reason why the palace lord asked the hidden official with his heart. It involves secrets. After all, the Gaojun of the Hushan faction is an outsider and cannot be easily disclosed. Today, Luopeishan's source of income mainly comes from 3 business routes. The first fortune route of Luopeishan built by Qin Pingan is mainly located in Beiju Luzhou, Bone Beach Fima Zone, Chuanlu Garden, Kaikfu, Yunshang including the city. The route that covers the entire southeastern boundary of Beiju Luzhou is like an arc, plus a wave of immortal islands on the sea. Among them, the robes woven by Kaik Mansion are the most considerable and stable income. The Dali court of Aquarius Island and the various mountain and water gods of Beiju Luzhou are the main purchasers. The second horizontal trade route, mainly along Jidu, includes Duckweed Sword Lake, Longgong Dongshan, and later added Duke Lingyuan Shinlin and Longting Ho Liyuan, as well as the Yunshao Palace of the Chongxian department of the Deyuan dynasty. Add the third route with Sanjiang Waters in Hongzhou Town, Dong Shuijing Fan Family in Old Longqing and Sunjiashu. In addition, there are various Xinjia ferry boats docking at Nujiashan Ferry, and the income of the 2 shops at the ferry, Baozhai and Kalongxiang, can be ignored for the time being. Neglect. Then there is a Lotus Root blessed land that ranks among the top-ranked bottlenecks. Among them, there is also a fox country that used to be the most important source of wealth for the Su family in Qingfeng City. The treasures that Luapa Mountain picked from the Lotus Root blessed land came into being and took advantage of the trend. Not many. With Qingping Sword Sect as the next sect, according to the old practice of World, Qingping Sword Sect needs to take at least 20 to 30% of the income and turn it over to Luopao Mountain on a regular basis. For example, in the Inkstone Mountain in the blessed land of Jiang's Cloud Cave, Qingping Sword Sect and Jiang's 55 to 50 division, Luopa Mountain and Qingping Sword Sect, although they are related to the upper and lower sects, still have to settle their accounts clearly. Without the financial road of the money, the Emperor Song he would not have been so sincere and invited Qin Pingan to serve as the Great Least national teacher. The level of realm, the size of fame, the amount of identity, the root of which lies in the word fulfillment. The depth of a country's national strength, iron cavalry, education, civil governance and martial arts, do not still fall on the word money. Zhong Qian was not particularly interested in these, but Gao Jun kept the names of the immortal mansions in his heart. Obviously they were discussing the purchase of Shantao, but Changming suddenly smiled and said, "Allow me to say a digression, Shanzhu, about the embezzlement of the 600 gold and copper coins in the account of the Chuanfu. Can you take this opportunity to raise the issue? Is it on the agenda?" Qin Pingan smiled wryly. It's very simple, that is, the gold and copper coins in the Chuanfu treasury are useful to the mountain master. Changming continued, if the mountain owner still feels the suspicion of being a fake public servant and feels sorry for it, then I will discuss it with everyone today. You might as well listen to everyone's thoughts. If everyone has no objection except for the mountain owner, then the owner of the mountain can only be a one-word hall, in order to overcome all opinions, and the next time the ancestors' hall will discuss the matter in detail. Previously on the Fengyuan ferry to Tongyi's Hao, Qin Pingan had just brought Xiaoma back to Haoran from wuxialover, and took the initiative to mention this to Changming because of the refining of the flying sword Jing Zhongyue. He wanted to create it is not a problem to build a long river of time that runs in an orderly manner. According to Qin Pingan's estimation at that time, it is not a problem to build a long river of time that is beginning to take shape with the help of the gold and copper coins that Ning Yao donated to the colorful world. The problem lies in Qin Ping's sword refining, is a bottomless pit that is destined to be filled with gold and silver mountains, and the 3 kinds of immortal money are meaningless, only gold and copper coins. At that time, Changmin persuaded Qin Pingan, but Qin Pingan said at that time that he was not polite to her, and returned to Shindu Mountain to discuss the matter in detail. As a result, when Qingping Sword Sect was completed, the first Patriarch Hall discussion, Qin Pingan was fundamentally I didn't mention this, and because it was in the next sect as the long-lived master of the upper sect, it was not appropriate to raise this issue in the next sect Patriarchal Hall, so she had to wait patiently. Qin Lingjun was a little surprised. The long-lived Taoist friend didn't even call his master a son? Why was it changed to the Mountain Lord? Why do you feel murderous? Zhu Lian immediately lowered his head and drank tea, hanging up high on the matter, and made up his mind not to go into the muddy water. Everyone says yes, everyone says no, I'm a housekeeper and cook and I'm soft-spoken, you can just think I don't exist. Wei Bo shook his robe, cocked Erlang's legs and nibbled on melon seeds. The words of the long-lived Taoist friend were very chewy, and they were more refreshing than drinking tea. Changming smiled and said, "Of course, according to the rules set by the mountain master himself in the early years, as long as the money and treasures are in the treasury, no matter who wants to call them, they need to pass the resolution of the council, and the mountain master cannot exception." Qin Lingzhen's face was full of thought and he asked in doubt, "Is there such a rule? Why don't I remember it?" Xiaomo smiled and said, "I haven't heard of it anyway." Xiego quickly agreed, "Xiaomo is right. The book said a very reasonable truth, women must support their men when they are outside. Didn't she just suffer from a big loss of not knowing this before? Otherwise now she and Xiaomo don't say they have become a Taoist partner, there are a bunch of babies." Qin Pingan glared and said, "Xiaomo Xiego, when did you go up the mountain? I heard you are a fart." Xiaomo didn't dare to argue with the young master, so he smiled and looked at Xiaomi, who immediately understood, and then had another brainstorm, coughed a few times. "The new editor, do you remember this?" The white-haired boy immediately pretended to take out the booklet from his sleeve. "Let me check it out carefully. Everyone wait a moment, the iron proof is like a mountain, black and white words are the least deceiving." Qin Pingan said angrily, "It's all right, I didn't intend to be polite to Changxing in this matter. I will use at least half of the 600 gold and copper coins in Xuanfu." Changming immediately corrected, "Shanju, how can you say that you are polite to me, and I don't dare to take this responsibility?" Wei Wenlong said with a smile, "The 2 gold coins were directly and indirectly earned by the mountain owner, so I have no objection to the call." Zhu Lian nodded and said softly, "No objection." Wei Bo helped to make a final decision, "That's someone who is hypocritical." Gao Jun and Zhong Qian looked at each other. Are the cultivators of Luopa mountain genealogy so courageous? Does this count as Qin Pingan who besieged the lord of a mountain? Although they are all with Qin Shanju in their hearts, but every one of them speaks so freely? In fact, this is the reason why Gao Jun and Zhong Qian have not yet followed the customs of the countryside. Otherwise Chief Zhou, Pei Qian, Cui Dongshan, Zheng Dafeng, Midai Jiangxian, Jialao Shenxian. If all these strong and powerful generals were present, that picture, hee. Xiego listened to Wei Bo's evaluation, and immediately took a high look at this Beiwe mountain monarch. Good, excellent, responsible and strong, dare to tell the truth, he is a hero. Guizhuzhou was eager to try and asked, "Master, do you need me to single out a group of them? I don't think it's a small problem and it's not a big problem." The sable-capped girl and the white-haired boy quietly glanced at each other and nodded. If Alliance leader Guo spoke, they had to follow. Qin Pingan rubbed his brows. "Don't bring some of the atmosphere of the summer palace to Luopao mountain." He waved at Guizhuzhou, took a sip of tea and put down the teacup gently. "That's it, I'll take it out today. 300 gold and copper coins and the remaining half, the Xuanfu, is reserved for me." Changming said with a heartwarming smile, "Young master, I have to forgive my sins. For today's matter, please trouble my son to say hello to Xiaoli, please don't let Pei Qian listen." Qin Lingzhen's voice was very straightforward. "Master, do you want me to join forces with Guizhuzhou to retreat from the enemy? But to be honest, the longevity and the others are indeed kind, just count this way Shanjun, the most excessive. If you don't stop me, I will. Are you going to start scolding him instead of brotherhood?" Zhu Lian gathered his voice to form a line. "Master, this trend cannot last long. If it goes on like this, everyone will rebel. What kind of etiquette? The long-lived Taoist friend is doing things today, it is not authentic. Especially Wei Shanjun, an outsider, talking irresponsible, yin and yang strange, don't know who to learn from, it's too outrageous." Qin Ping placed Ruo deaf and let Palace Master Wei continue the previous issue. But in an instant, Qin Pingan and Wei Bo, Xiego and Xiaomo turned their heads to the west at almost the same time. There was a flying sword that came from the west to the east, and suddenly entered the boundary of Chuzhou, and was about to swept into the Jiaisfeng sword room. Qin Pingan stretched out his hand and took the flying sword into his hands. After reading the secret letter from the Book of Rites Academy, he was both happy and relieved. The secret letter is an invitation letter. It comes from senior brother Mao Xiaodong, who is the secretary of the school. The first half of the content is an official document sent by senior brother Mao to Luopao Mountain in the name of the Book of Rites School, inviting Qin Pingan to listen to the debate of the 3 religions. In the second half, it is more like a family letter between brothers and sisters. The letter said that the candidates to participate in the debate of the 3 religions have already been decided and will not be changed. There are 9 Buddhist sons from Western Buddhist countries and the world is full of blue. Of the 9 Taoist species, 2 of them are rather strange. One is Zhang Fenghai, who should have been imprisoned in the Yanxia cave of Yuegong in Baiyujing town. But according to Bai Yujing, Zhang Fenghai is not only a Taoist official in Yushu City now, even Bai Yujing's genealogical identity has not been retained. Then there is Zhou Li, the first sect of the Aquarius sect, the head of Qingxian sect, and Zhou Li. So what the students are wronged, it's better that the teacher is not wronged. The old scholar twitched his beard and smiled. This is where the senior brother is inferior to the junior brother. Obviously he is not slapping his beard, but he speaks like a flattery. Mao Xiaodong murmured, real grievances will only teach people whether they should cry or not. The old Xiaocai stretched out his arms and patted Mao Xiaodong's shoulder lightly. In Luapa Mountain, Chen Pingan walked to the gate of the mountain and stood behind a bamboo chair. The janitor, Xianwei, was reading a book. Chen Pingan coughed, and the Taoist priest Xianwei was startled, and threw the book to the ground with lightning speed. Brother Dafeng, I never thought you were such a person and you have such a book. A rickety man appeared in the house out of thin air. Just when he saw this scene he shouted angrily, shouting that the old cook is doing something wrong, and even put this kind of book in someone else's house. Chen Pingan was full of surprise and asked with a smile, what happened? Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, I'm homesick. End of this chapter. That you're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.